Chapter 1825. No one knew better than them how difficult it was to awaken a domain and how big the gap in strength was after awakening a domain. In the entire azure blue world, there were no more than 100 people who had awakened a domain. But in the purple cloud realm, there were already nearly 100 people who had awakened a domain at the age of 25. Murongbai also coughed lightly and said, "The Deer Cry Banquet of the Dragon Soaring Academy has always gathered talented cultivators from all regions of the purple cloud realm. I can tell you responsibly that almost every team that participates in the Deer Cry Banquet, with 10 people in a group, can win against a low-level nascent soul cultivator like Tian Heibo if they exert their full strength." Yun Ruohan and the others gasped. Even Meng Baichuan exclaimed, "No, that's impossible, right? A team composed of young people, each person's strength was at most at the golden core stage, but every team could defeat a nascent soul cultivator. Isn't this a little too shocking? This is the difference between a real genius and an ordinary cultivator." Naylan Qing said in a deep voice, "Even if they are at the Anidia stage, do you think an ordinary Anidia cultivator can be compared with Miss Jun?" Naylan Dongyun said anxiously, "Even so, Great Godyi is still the strongest." The heads of the 5 families did not deny this point. Miss Jun's talent and strength are indeed the best I have seen in my life. I'm afraid that even in the purple cloud realm, there may not be anyone more talented than you. In fact, even the talent of the other members of the Xiao Yarrow team is far higher than others. But Lu Zhenjing changed the topic. "Your cultivation is too low, none of you have broken through the golden core stage. In the azure blue world, with Miss Jun's support and her own talent and strength, you may be invincible. But in the purple cloud realm, facing those golden core cultivators who are as talented as you will face one hard battle after another. Especially you." Lu Zhenjing's eyes swept over the people of the Xiao Yarrow sect. "Let's not talk about Miss Jun's monstrous strength. If you don't have a breakthrough before the Deer Cry Banquet, I'm afraid you will drag Miss Jun down." Lu Zhenjing's words were not polite, and the hearts of the people of the Xiao Yarrow sect sank a little. However, deep in their hearts, they knew that it was true. Even if his junior sister had not broken through to the gold core stage, the gap between them was getting wider and wider. Only Chu Moli didn't have the slightest trace of panic on his face. There was only a gentle and serene smile on his face. He had already discovered this problem when Mu Yang was fighting against the 2 immortals by himself. This was the first time he had such a strong desire to become stronger. After Mu Yang and the others leave, Naylan Qing and the others look at the slowly closing door, their faces revealing a look of anticipation. Can they really set off monstrous waves at the Deer Cry Banquet? Don't forget, at the Deer Cry Banquet, there's also the Dragon Soaring Academy's Chilean team. That's a team composed of peerless geniuses rarely seen in 1,000 years. Until now, no team has been able to survive for more than an hour under their attacks. Who knows? Perhaps they can create a miracle. Murongbai's expression was deep and serene, with a trace of yearning. "I don't know why, but when I saw that little girl Jun Muyan, I felt that there were no miracles that she couldn't create." Chapter 1826. The 3 realms of Minute LV, Azure Cloud, and Azure Blue had already been overturned by these 7 people, leaving behind traces that no one could ever erase. Who knew what kind of turbulent waves they would face when they stepped into the purple cloud realm? Naylan Qing suddenly remembered that before Muyan left, she had entrusted the 5 great families to take care of the Nether Flame Army. This was because she was not prepared to let the Nether Flame Army follow her to the purple cloud world. Instead, she wanted them to use the azure blue world as a base to lay low and slowly strengthen themselves. Naylan Qing and the others were naturally duty-bound to do this, but they couldn't help but sigh in shock. Jun Muyan was actually so at ease with this Nether Flame Army, allowing them to develop on their own. Wasn't she afraid that after such a force grew stronger, it would break away from her and become a hegemon, or be absorbed by other aristocratic families? Hearing Naylan Qing's question, the girl opposite him raised her eyebrows slightly, revealing a disdainful smile. "Of course I'm not afraid. To me, they are not my subordinates, but my family. One day, if they want to leave me, it won't be because they want to betray me. Instead, it will be because they feel that they can better help me." Nailan Qing stares blankly at the girl's flying smile. It's only when Mu Yang and the others have left that he suddenly comes back to his senses. Therefore, he was currently thinking the same thing as Murong Bai. That was, as long as Jun Muyin is here, any miracle is possible. He wondered if the Purple Cloud Realm was ready to welcome this demon-like magical girl. When the Nether Flame Army heard that Mu Yang did not allow them to follow them to the Purple Cloud World, all of them felt as though they were struck by lightning. Everyone's expressions were very gloomy, but there was not the slightest bit of complaint. Because they all knew that Mu Yang had left them here not to abandon them, but to protect them. In the end, they were still too weak. Even with Mu Yang's help, their true strength is only at the 3rd stage of Inedia, and the weak ones haven't even reached the stage of Inedia. Such a level of cultivation was already barely achievable in the Azure Blue Realm, let alone in the Purple Cloud Realm where experts gathered. Mu Yang clenches the storage ring in her hand. Inside were the elixirs, talismans, and cultivation manuals that she had prepared for the Nether Flame Army after pulling several all-nighters. Looking at the sad faces of the Nether Flame Army, her heart was filled with reluctance. But what could he do no matter how reluctant he was? Her Shun musician skills are not strong enough, especially when it comes to alchemy. There is no way for her subordinates to improve in a short time. Mu Yang opens her mouth, wanting to speak, but Yu Yang has already opened her mouth first with red eyes. I'm sorry, miss, it's all because we're too weak. Therefore, he had no choice but to separate as soon as he found the young miss. The sourness in Mu Yang's heart surged even more, and she even wanted to take them to the Ziyun world at all costs. No matter how difficult it was, he would protect his family. She remembered the painting that her apprentice, Liu Beiyu, showed her after their reunion. After she left, Liu Beiyu painted several hundred pictures. Each one is a scene of the underworld Flame Valley in the Yanwu continent. Some were training, some were eating, and some were laughing and playing. There were portraits of Yang Haotian, Yu Yang, Bai Ichen, and Shui Yang, who had already ascended. There are also figures of people like Old Dao, Fang Jingya, and Chen Qingfeng, who ultimately stayed in the Yanwu continent because they didn't have enough talent. Those who could not ascend did not have any complaints. Instead, they promised to guard the Netherflame Valley well. Let Mingyang Valley become the eternal pure land of the entire Yanwu continent. Chapter 1827. What moves Mu Yang the most is that these paintings clearly depict the scene after she and Xiao Bao left the Yanwu continent. But in the most conspicuous position of each painting, there is always a place for her and Xiao Bao. Liu Beiyu said that this is strongly requested by everyone in the Dark Flame Valley. Because only in this way can they feel that the Miss and the Little Master have always been with them, and have never left. Liu Beiyu draws 2 identical copies of each painting. One copy is brought up for Muyin to see, and the other is left in the Yanwu continent, so that those who couldn't ascend can have a remembrance of it. Mu Yang's heart suddenly surges with pride and excitement. She almost blurts out to ask them to go with her to the Ziyun realm. However, at this moment, Chu Moli's lazy voice interrupts, "Little junior sister, this group of subordinates of yours is really quite weak. If they go to the Ziyun realm, they won't even be enough to be cannon fodder." The term cannon fodder is something that the people of the Xiaoyaro sect have just learned from Bai Xie. Mu Yang glares at Chu Moli. Does this abnormal 3rd senior brother know how to speak? What does he mean by not even be enough to be cannon fodder? The mood of the Dark Flame Army becomes increasingly depressed. However, in the next moment, they hear Chu Moli's voice carrying a bit of excitement. However, being weak also has its advantages and benefits. Do you really hope to be able to help little junior sister one day? Hearing Chu Moli's words, the eyes of the Dark Flame Army brighten. Even Bai Ichen, who has always been the most calm, can't help but speak up. How can we help the miss? In fact, there are many people in the Nether Flame Army who are outstanding elite warriors in the Yanwu continent. But in the Shozhen continent, they have become as insignificant as ants. How can they, who are so insignificant, help the miss and the little master? Chu Moli, being weak means being insignificant, and also means that no one will take you seriously and deal with you as a target of public criticism. It just so happens that in dealing with the Tian family this time, The Dark Flame Army didn't really reveal themselves. Everyone's eyes were focused on little junior sister. Probably no one has carefully remembered your voices and appearances. Isn't this very good? Listening to Chu Moli's unhurried narration, the eyes of the Dark Flame Army brighten little by little. Rather than being a burden to little junior sister who has always been the focus of attention, you might as well find a way to better and quickly infiltrate your forces into every corner of the Xiozhen continent. Perhaps right now, the 2,000 people of the Dark Flame Army are insignificant. However, when they infiltrated into various industries and developed, they would slowly snowball, becoming more and more frightening the more it rolled. One day, it would become a huge force that would engulf the entire cultivation continent, and no one would be able to stop it. The scene Chu Moli describes is too beautiful. This caused the confusion and disappointment of the Nether Flame Army to be replaced by impassioned longing in an instant. In Xiaobao Xiao Xia's words, the Moli Tian's clan's Yarrow is Yang Xian Lin is, he sighs is Yarrow sect master. With just 2 or 3 sentences, he was able to bluff thousands of people into a daze, completely losing their bearings. Lin in Xie Dong. Mu Xie Xie Chen Xiao Li. Ling Chen Yang people of Xiao and Xie, Xiao Bao Xiao Shi King is Yang is Yang is Yang is Momu Dong is sect. Xiao 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 Li Yu Chen Chen Ling, he master Yang Chen Yang Shi, Chen Shi, the Chen Chen Yang Yang Chen Shi, Xiao Yang Yang Chen Yang Yang Dong of Shi Li is. Chapter 1828. Now, all the funds will be provided by little junior sister in the Tianguang ruins. With the ghastly Flame Valley as a secret base, and the Starry School and the 5 clans supporting you in the dark. You won't do worse than before and embarrass little junior sister, right? The 2,000 people in the square shouted in unison. Absolutely not. At this moment, the light in their eyes was as bright as the stars on a summer night, almost burning. Bai Xie said, TSK, little master, what am I saying? How is this the head of a pyramid scheme? He's basically a brainwashing expert. Chu Moli crooked his finger at Yang Haotian, Are You Yang, Bai Ichen, and Feng Haitang. As I said earlier, your previous actions were too straightforward and one-track-minded. If you want to better infiltrate the various forces, your methods need to be more cunning and sinister. As he spoke, he lowered his voice and whispered something in the ears of the 4. Yang Haotian and the other 3 widened their eyes, their faces filled with shock as if a new world had opened up. Mu Yang finally could not take it anymore and said, Third senior brother, don't lead my people astray. Only then did Chu Moli reluctantly take back his words. Meeting Mu Yang's warning gaze, he blinked innocently. Little junior sister, you worry too much. I'm just teaching them how to survive in the azure blue world. Haha, I think you're teaching them how to harm the people of the azure blue world. Chu Moli looked at Mu Yang meaningfully. Actually, little junior sister is also very clear about what path is best for them. That's why you asked the Nalan clan leader and the others, isn't it? Little junior sister, soft-heartedness and indecisiveness do not suit you. Yes, she understood the reasoning. It was just that for a moment, her emotions won over her rationality. But Chu Moli's words were like a bucket of cold water poured over her head, waking her up. Mu Yang took a deep breath and raised her voice. Netherfire Army, listen up. Here. Thousands of Netherfire soldiers knelt in the square of the Alcade branch. Their movements were neat and uniform, their shouts shaking the sky. At this moment, there was no more confusion in their hearts, and there was only the resolution to press forward with indomitable will. Yang Haotian, step forward. Under Mu Yang's command, Yang Haotian immediately steps forward and kneels on one knee. From today onwards, you will lead the Ink camp and join all the major mercenary groups in the Xiozhen continent. You will even establish the strongest mercenary group. I want you to become a sharp knife that walks in the darkness, unstoppable and invincible. Yang Haotian's body trembled slightly. He unsheathed his long sword and stabbed it into the ground with a loud clang. Immediately after that, all the soldiers of the Ink camp kneel down in unison, suppressing their excitement as they shout in unison, We obey Mrs. Orders. Ruyan, step forward. Yu Yang quickly steps forward, Her red eyes are filled with reverence and longing as she looks at Muyin. From today onwards, you will lead the Tianji unit. With Tianguang ruins as a base, you will infiltrate the various industries of the cultivation continent. I want you to create a complete and meticulous intelligence network and make the Secret Heaven Division the most powerful spy organization on the entire cultivation continent. Yu Yang nodded heavily. I will obey Mrs. Command. Behind him, everyone in the Heavenly Secret Battalion yelled in unison, yes, young miss. Feng Haitang, step forward. Feng Haitang took a step forward and knelt on the ground. Miss, please instruct me. Chapter 1829. I had thought that our Silver Plume Palace's first young mistress would be able to gain the Emperor's favor. Who would have known that she had angered the Emperor instead? Just as we were wondering how to make up for it, we accidentally saw a portrait in the Emperor's hands. The people of the Tualuo tribe discovered a beauty that looked very similar to the woman in the portrait. We tried our best to get her. This is all thanks to the rosemary fragrance that Lord Star Wolf gave me. If not, if I wasted more effort and let that girl know what kind of person she has climbed up to, I'm afraid that she would continue to pester me and try to climb up the dragon and the phoenix. Han Yi's complexion becomes increasingly unsightly. He recalled that when he entered the house just now, he seemed to have smelled the faint scent of rosemary. At that time, he thought it was an illusion, but he didn't expect it to be. In that case, the woman was really in the room. And Jun Shong also. But how could this be? If Jun Shong favors another woman, what will happen to Miss Jun? With Miss Jun's unyielding temperament, if she knew that Jun Shong had another woman, how could she still be willing to marry Jun Shong? At that time, little Ying would be so sad and furious when she found out. When Xinglang heard this, he patted the middle-aged man's shoulder and laughed heartily. For a woman like that, to be favored by the Lord is already her greatest honor. She doesn't need to know anything else, in case she thinks too much. Elder Ji, you've done well. Jun Shong and I will remember your contributions. Ji Jiping was overjoyed when he heard this. In the Silver Plume Palace, he and Hua Xiangrong's father, Hua Zhongbai, were both elders and vice palace masters. The Silver Feather Palace Lord was old, but his cultivation had reached its limit and was unable to break through. His lifespan might not be long. Next, the person who could ascend to the position of Palace Lord would probably be between him and Hua Zhongbai. This time, when the Emperor came to the cultivation continent, the two of them tried their best to curry favor with him, hoping to stabilize their position as Palace Lord by pleasing the Emperor. Hua Zhongbai, that shameless fellow, in order to curry favor with the monarch, he actually sent his daughter to seduce the monarch. Fortunately, the Emperor didn't like Hua Xiangrong at all. That was why he was given this opportunity. Ji Jiping couldn't help but be overjoyed at the thought of the beauty he had presented to the Emperor. The position of Silver Feather Palace Master would most likely belong to him. Han Yi ruthlessly punches the wall, gnashing his teeth in hatred. At this moment, the door to the room opened. Di Mingju's tall figure slowly walks out. On his usually cold and arrogant face, there was a rare trace of contentment and tenderness. Just looking at Jun Shong's expression, Han Yi's heart sinks a little. Di Mingju frowns as he sees the few people standing at the door. Star Wolf and Ji Jiping hurriedly kneel down. Greetings, Lord Emperor. Han Yi's body stiffens for a long time before he slowly kneels down, but he doesn't say anything. Di Mingju doesn't ask them what they're doing at the door, but opens his mouth heavily. Where's Yingmai? Star Wolf didn't say anything because he didn't know where Yingmai was. Instead, he turns his gaze towards Han Yi. It's just that Han Yi's complexion becomes increasingly unsightly. I don't know, what business does Jun Shong have with Yingmai? Di Mingju says faintly, tell her to come and guard. Han Yi couldn't bear it any longer, and angrily says, even if Yingmai wants to protect someone, she would only protect Miss Jun Jun Shong. If you want to recruit people to protect that woman inside, you should find someone else. Yingmai doesn't even want to see that kind of woman. Chapter 1830. As soon as Han Yi thinks of Yingmai's grief and anger after knowing that Jun Shong has fallen in love with someone else, he can't control his emotions. Di Mingju raises his eyebrows, his eyes slightly narrowing. However, without waiting for him to speak, a languid voice comes from inside the room. Han Yi, haven't seen you for a few months, have your guts grown fat? Little Ying do you really not want to see me? As soon as this voice is heard, Han Yi looks up in disbelief. A woman with shoulder-length hair, dressed in a white dress, slowly walked out of the house. The sunlight shone on her delicate skin, making her look even more beautiful and otherworldly. Han Yi's eyes suddenly go wide, his mouth gaping open, and he loudly mumbles, Jun. Jun. Miss Jun. But is unable to say a complete sentence. However, before he could regain his rationality, Di Mingju has already turned around in anger, wrapping his clothes around the woman's body. Without waiting for anyone to protest, he carried him horizontally and walked into the house. Di Mingju, what are you doing? Mu Yang is furious. With a cold expression, Di Mingju closes the door with a bang, cutting off Han Yi and Xing Lang's line of sight. Who allowed you to come out dressed like this? Mu Yang looks down at the translucent clothes on her body, and says with a smile that isn't a smile, what's wrong with these clothes? I think it's pretty good. It was your people who put it on for me in order to present me to you. Di Mingju's complexion turns even darker. He directly throws the person on the bed, pulling the quilt and wrapping her up tightly. Mu Yang struggles, but she can't break free. She rolls her eyes, pulls Di Mingju's collar, and her soft cherry lips are reflected on his. Di Mingju's hand that was shackling him immediately loosens, and he reaches out to pull the person into his embrace. The kiss was deep and passionate. Kai's heart was stirred. But just as Di Mingju is about to push her down on the bed and execute her on the spot, Muyin flips over and breaks free, a sly smile appearing on her face. Di Mingju, I'm hungry. Di Mingju's eyes are slightly red, and he reaches out to pull her into his arms. Yang Yang, I'm hungry too. That pair of devouring eyes seem to be itching to swallow her skin and bones. Mu Yang swallows her saliva. He suddenly remembered last night. In the beginning, the effects of the drug took effect and she wanted to eat him up. In the end, when the effects of the drug were gone, a certain someone refused to stop. In the end, the one who was eaten up and begged for mercy was naturally her. Her cheeks blushed at the thought of last night. She was not embarrassed, but angry. Di Mingju looks at her appearance, but he also remembers last night. The corner of his mouth hooks up into a wicked smile. Yang Yang, Ben Jun thinks that Ben Jun can continue to be your antidote. What fucking antidote? She never wanted this kind of antidote in her life. Seeing that Di Mingju's eyes are getting deeper, Mu Yang immediately shows a pitiful expression. Di Mingju, I'm really hungry. Do you know how much I've missed the delicacies you've made? He knew that the naughty girl in his arms was deliberately teasing him and making him uncomfortable. Hearing Muyan's words, Di Mingju's heart is still unreasonably soft. He takes a deep breath, suppressing all the desires in his body. He stretches out a finger and gently scrapes the tip of the girl's nose. Wait for me in the room, you're not allowed to run around. You're not allowed to wear this and let anyone see you. The last sentence is said through gritted teeth. Mu Yang's eyes and brows curve into a smile. Di Mingju, you look so cute when you're jealous. Chapter 1831. As for the Xiao Yarrow sect, they had always stayed in that desolate place, day after day. Master didn't let them leave, and they couldn't escape the cage that was woven for them in the past. And then, a girl appeared. She became their junior sister, the new disciple of the Xiao Yarrow sect. Then, everything started to change. Yun Ruohan couldn't help but look at Mu Yang. Mu Yang immediately said in high spirits, eldest senior brother, tell us, what are the origins of master and junior martial uncle? Actually, she was also quite interested in the background of the abnormal third brother. Yun Ruohan couldn't help but clench his fists. He couldn't help but look at everyone present, and finally at Luo Yu. Junior uncle's habits changed. Qin Ju's mentality changed. Xiaowu's fate became completely different. Would one day, the other people of the Xiao Yarrow sect also usher in a different life? Big brother? Mu Yang waved her hand in front of his eyes. Yun Ruohan suddenly came back to his senses. He smiled and was about to say something. Suddenly, There was a noise behind him. "Little bastard, you're tired of living, how dare you bump into me? Yo, you're not bad looking. If I sell you to Golden Inn, that specializes in children, I'm sure I can get a lot of crystals." As soon as the voice fell, the smiles on the faces of the people of the Xiao Yarrow sect disappeared, and they all looked not far away. At this time, they were resting in a restaurant called Huan Cai Pavilion in Cloud City. This Huan Cai Pavilion was very interesting. The food was not ordered according to the menu, but in the backyard, they killed and cooked the ominous beasts. Just now, Xiao Bao obediently said that he would order the food. The people of the Xiao Yarrow sect were so touched that they wanted to cry. Their martial nephew was so good. The best in the world. Obedient, sensible, and very capable. Only Mu Yang, looking at the fat rabbit jumping restlessly in Xiao Bao's arms, knew. This fat rabbit must be greedy and wanted to eat the ominous beasts in other people's restaurants. Don't be fooled by Xiao Bao's cold appearance, and he often disliked his spirit pet and sword spirit. But he still spoiled the fat rabbit, Little Phoenix, and Bai Xie. Mu Yang touched his little face, and told him to be careful, so he went to the backyard to order the food. Devour at this time, in the middle of the hall, there was a conflict between Xiao Bao and a fierce-looking middle-aged man. The middle-aged man didn't look where he was going and bumped into Xiao Bao, causing the food in his hand to spill. In the end, the villain was the first to complain, cursing at Xiao Bao. Mu Yang, Yun Ruohan, and the others all had cold expressions on their faces, but none of them moved. The surrounding customers couldn't help but exclaim, "Ah, where's the child's family? Why aren't you coming out to save him? Idiot, didn't you see that the man's clothes are from the Ouyang family?" Provoking the Ouyang clan in Cloud-Piercing City, wasn't that the same as courting death? Even if the child's parents were there, I'm afraid they wouldn't dare to come out now, right? Sigh, it's a pity that the little doll was sold to Jin Man Lu just like that. What a pity. I heard that Jin Man Lu's children were also sent to the Ouyang family. In the end, none of them came out alive. Hearing the discussions, Ouyang Qing's face turned ashen. In fact, ever since Ling Yuxing left, he rarely returned to Cloudpiercer City. He almost didn't care about the Ouyang clan's affairs. Until this time, when he reunited with Ling Yuxing in the Starry School, he felt that there was something fishy about what happened back then. Chapter 1832. He wants to regain control of the Ouyang family and avenge Ling Yuxing. The Ouyang family's influence is mainly divided into two parts, the surface and the secret. The secret part is controlled by the heirs of the Ouyang family. Since Ouyang Xiangdong went into seclusion, it has always been in the hands of Ouyang Qing. But in order to find Ling Yuxing these years, he has secretly sent them out. And the Ouyang family's surface power is said to be in the hands of the family head, Ouyang Xiangdong. But Ouyang Xiangdong is in seclusion all year round, so this part of the power has always been controlled by Madame Ouyang Wei Caizhu. Ouyang Qing didn't expect that in just a few short years, Wei Caizhu has actually used the Ouyang family's power to turn Cloud-Piercing City into a foul atmosphere. He stands up with an ashen face and is about to save Xiao Bao, but Ling Yuxing pulls him back to his seat. Ling Yuxing lightly snorts, "Want to touch my martial nephew? First look at yourself first. He, this kind of Tom, Dick, and Harry isn't even fit to carry my family's Xiao Bao's shoes." Ouyang Qing just remembered that the little baby in front of him is not an ordinary baby, but the son of their family's Xiao Sheng's most awesome and abnormal junior sister, Jun Muyan. Under the siege of thousands of fasting stage cultivators, that Evildor child is unstoppable. On the other side, the middle-aged man has already reached out to grab Xiao Bao's lapel. Xiao Bao's icy blue eyes don't have a trace of warmth, and he slightly raises his hand. But before he could make a move, a black shadow suddenly flashed past. Something smashes into the middle-aged man's face. There's only a smacking sound, and the middle-aged man screams, his mouth suddenly full of blood. When he opens his mouth again, those two front teeth have already been smashed and fell. The one who did it is a man in a black cloak in the corner. The man's appearance is completely covered under the hood, making it hard to see clearly. After throwing the chopsticks, he picks up another pair, leisurely eating, as if he didn't do anything just now.
Who?
Who dares to make a move against me? The middle-aged man's front teeth are knocked out, and his words leak air. His eyes are full of malevolence as he fiercely glares at the cloaked man, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. This father will tear you apart. The cloaked man raised his eyes. Just as he was about to make a move, the fat rabbit in Xiao Bao's arms suddenly jumped up and smashed into the middle-aged man's back. The man let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered and lay on the ground, unable to get up again. The fat rabbit jumped up and down on his back, very arrogant. The man in the cloak looked over in surprise, his gaze shifting between the fat rabbit and Xiao Bao.
You.
Do you know who I am? How dare you injure me in Cloudpiercer City? You must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's gall. The middle-aged man roared out in rage, his voice reverberating throughout the entire inn. Everyone here today, I will not let them off. Before he could finish his sentence, a foot suddenly stepped on his head and pressed him to the ground. How are you going to be rude to me? Son of a bitch, let go of me. I am the Ouyang family. The middle-aged man's voice came to an abrupt halt. His gaping mouth revealed that he had lost 2 front teeth. Blood flowed down to his neck, but he didn't feel it at all. He raised his head, looking at Ouyang Qing, who was looking down at him, before stammering, young master. Ouyang Qing laughed coldly. Wei Caiju's management of the Ouyang family is truly exceptional. Chapter 1833. Young master, spare me, spare me. I'm the nephew of Madam's trusted aide, Butler Li. You can't kill. The middle-aged man's eyes show fear, screaming for mercy. Ouyang Qing doesn't wait for him to finish speaking. The sword in his hand has already been devoured. The sword has already entered his heart from his back. Everyone in the restaurant is stunned, all eyes are focused on Ouyang Qing. After a long while, someone exclaims, Young Master Ouyang is back. Young Master Ouyang is back. Does that mean that the person in charge of the Ouyang family will change hands? In the future, we won't have to suffer Madame Ouyang's bullying anymore. Everyone knows that the heir of the Ouyang family isn't the current Madame's child. And Ouyang Qing's return represents that Wei Caiju, who is currently tyrannical in the Ouyang family, has come to an end. Ouyang Qing doesn't pay attention to the surrounding people's discussion, and turns to approach Ling Yusheng. In a place where others can't see, he covers their hands with his sleeve, and holds Ling Yusheng's hand tightly in his palm. Xiao Sheng, do you want to follow me back to the Ouyang family to settle accounts with Wei Caiju first, or go to the Ling family first? Ling Yusheng ponders for a moment, then says, I want to go back to the Ling family. On the other side, Mu Yang holds Xiao Bao's hand, walks in front of the cloaked man, and smiles gratefully. Many thanks for the help just now, fellow Daoist. Hearing the girl's clear and melodious voice, the cloaked man raises his head. A clear and handsome face suddenly falls into Mu Yang's eyes. Seeing this face, Mu Yang stares blankly. The man also stares blankly. For a moment, both of them lose the ability to speak, and the air inexplicably becomes quiet. Xiao Bao also blinks, looking at his mother, then at the uncle who just helped him. He can't help but tilt his head. Why does he feel that this uncle is somewhat similar to his mother? Yes, this face hidden under the cloak is 30% similar to Mu Yang's. Originally, 30% similarity isn't a big deal, and at first glance, it wouldn't be shocking. But the problem is, the most similar place between this man and Mu Yang is in their eyes. A pair of peach blossom eyes that are almost identical. Only, one is beautiful and charming, while the other is romantic and elegant, exuding a righteous aura. Even if one looked at these 2 pairs of peach blossom eyes, one could easily tell that they were 2 completely different people. Moreover, one was a man and the other was a woman. The man opened his mouth and asked, What's your name? Before Mu Yang could speak, she heard Luo Yu's noisy voice behind her, 6th senior sister, let's pack up all our food. We'll eat on the way to 5th senior brother's house. Because of the middle-aged man's disturbance and Ouyang Qing's appearance, the Huan Cai pavilion became noisy, making it impossible for them to calm down and eat. Mu Yang turns her head and responds, then turns around to leave. Halfway there, she turns around and says with a slight smile, My name is Jun Muyan, may I know Gong's name? His surname is Jun. The cloaked man muttered and couldn't help but shake his head. Then he smiled and said, My name is Ning Shu. Ouyang Manor. Wei Saiju jumped up from her chair when she heard her subordinate's report. What did you say? Ming Zhu is dead. The Wei clan was destroyed. How is that possible? The subordinate kneeled on the ground, shivering, and said in a trembling voice, It's absolutely true, the news just came from Kangyun City. Chapter 1834. Who killed my Mingzhu? Who destroyed the Wei clan? The subordinate said in a panic, I heard from Tsungyun City that it was an organization called the Unfettered Seven Demons. The news of the Unfettered Seven Demons had spread across Minute LV, Qingyun, and Kanglan realms. But because of the special location of Cloud-Piercing City, the news would come later. Wei Saiju obviously had never heard of it. What unfettered seven demons? Did they eat a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? Don't they know that Mingzhu is from the Ouyang clan? The person kneeling on the ground shook his head, then said with a serious expression, I haven't found out where the unfettered seven demons came from. I only know that they are a few rising starry school students, and they are said to be very powerful. But I asked the survivors of the Wei clan, they said that among the people who destroyed the Wei clan, they saw. What did they see? They saw the young master and Ling Yusheng from back then. What? The coral bracelet in Wei Saiju's hand fell to the ground, and her voice suddenly rose. Ouyang Qing? Why would he destroy the Wei clan? Why would he attack Mingzhu? Did he know? Wei Saiju's expression became more and more panicked. And that Ling Yusheng, wasn't he dead? Why would he come back? Madam! Get out! Get out! Wei Saiju fiercely kicked the person kneeling on the ground. A bunch of trash. Hurry up and investigate for me. What's going on? My Mingzhu will not die. Go and save her for me. The subordinate ran out frantically, but Wei Saiju paced back and forth in the room in frustration. Her heart was filled with anger and anxiety, and fear at the same time. Just then, the door was suddenly knocked open, and a white-haired old man stumbled in. Madam, bad news, bad news. Wei Saiju was in a rage at the moment. Hearing the unlucky yelling, she could not help but slap him. What are you yelling for? Don't you think I'm annoying enough? If it wasn't her trusted aide, Butler Li, who had raised her since she was a child, she would have long been dragged out and beaten to death. Steward Li fell to his knees with a thud, his face full of fear as he said, Madam, my nephew was killed in the Huan Cai pavilion. It's just a nephew, it doesn't matter if he's dead. You even bother me with this kind of thing. But madam, the person who killed my nephew was the young master. Wei Saiju suddenly widened her eyes and looked at Butler Li in disbelief. Steward Li's entire body trembled. There was no sorrow for his nephew's death in his eyes, only panic and fear. Along with young master came that Ling Yusheng. Wei Saiju screamed, that shameless bitch is actually still alive. Kill him. Hurry and get someone to kill him for me. Butler Li, madam, that Ling Yusheng is with young master now. Moreover, young master has spread the word in the Huan Cai pavilion that he will come and settle the score with madam. When young master left the Ouyang clan for the Starry School, the Ouyang clan's hidden death warriors followed young master. Moreover, young master has been in control of the Ouyang clan for so many years, his influence in the Ouyang clan is still there. If he really wants to attack madam, we will be in big trouble. Chapter 1835. Wei Saiju paced back and forth in the room, unable to hide the panic and fear on her face. At this moment, she couldn't even spare any attention to worry about the safety of her daughter, Wei Mingzhu. He was only afraid that his wealth and status would be lost. Why did Ouyang Qing want to destroy the Wei family? Could it be that he knows that Mingzhu is the daughter of Wei Zhongming and me? Furthermore, he even knew that he and the Wei clan were the ones who killed his mother. If Ouyang Qing really knew everything, he would never let him off. As for Wei Saiju, this Madame Ouyang's title sounded glorious, but in fact, it was not even fart. The authority of the Ouyang clan had always been firmly in the hands of Ouyang Xiangdong and Ouyang Qing. Otherwise, she wouldn't have tried so hard to get her daughter into Ouyang Yangqing's bed. The more Wei Caizhu thought about it, the more frightened she became. She suddenly pushed the door open and rushed towards the secret chamber where Ouyang Xiangdong was in seclusion. No, she couldn't just sit and wait for death. In the Ouyang clan and Cloudpiercer city, the only one who could deal with Ouyang Qing was the current patriarch of the Ouyang clan. It was her husband, Ouyang Xiangdong. Although she thought so, Wei Caizhu's heart was still filled with apprehension when she pushed open the door to Ouyang Xiangdong's secret chamber. Over the years, Ouyang Xiangdong had become more and more obsessed with closed-door cultivation. He basically didn't even care about the Ouyang family's affairs. His temperament was also becoming more and more temperamental by the day. In the past, Wei Caizhu still dared to act coquettishly in front of him, but now, every time she saw Ouyang Xiangdong, she felt a chill run down her spine. During this period of time, there were also some people in the Ouyang family who wanted to fight for power. Ouyang Xiangdong didn't care at all. However, the strange thing was that those people who were clamoring to replace the Ouyang family's family head would disappear without a trace in less than 2 days. Slowly, no one in the Ouyang family dared to cause trouble anymore. Wei Caizhu controlled the Ouyang family with the identity of Madame Ouyang. She knew very well that no matter how arrogant and despotic she was outside, as long as she did not anger Ouyang Xiangdong, her position would be stable. Wei Caizhu composed herself and slowly pushed the door open. As soon as he stepped in, an eerie, bone-piercing chill hit him in the face. Then, a hand that was as cold as ice cubes clasped her neck. The hoarse and cold voice sounded like it came from hell. Wei Caizhu, I thought you had some brains. You know how to be obedient, how to live like a dog. Wei Caizhu was scared out of her wits. Her whole body trembled like a sieve. Her mouth was open for a long time, but no sound came out. Until the hand on his neck tightened again. Wei Caizhu screamed, Ling Yusheng. Ling Yusheng is back. He paused in the act of digging his nails into her throat. In the darkness, Wei Caizhu heard the man licking his lips with his tongue, swallowing something. Ling Yusheng, is it that delicious prey with rare spatial talent? Wei Caizhu nodded frantically. Yes, it's that little bitch. He and Ouyang Qing annihilated the Wei clan and killed our daughter, Mingzhu. Now, they have arrived at Cloud-Piercing City. Master, you must seek justice for my Wei family and Mingzhu. We've already arrived at Cloud-Piercer City. The man's voice grew more and more excited, and his throat even made a gurgling sound. Good. That was great. This seat only needed a little bit more to achieve great success in this divine art. This is the best nourishment for me. Ha 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 ha. The reason Wei Caizhu came to find Ouyang Xiangdong was because she suddenly remembered that Ouyang Xiangdong also seemed to want something from Ling Yusheng. Chapter 1836. Ouyang Xiangdong wanted it back then, but what about now? Would he want it too? If Ouyang Xiangdong wanted to touch Ling Yusheng, would Ouyang Qing allow it? At that time, the father and son would turn against each other, and she would be able to reap the benefits. Sure enough, after hearing her words, Ouyang Xiangdong's reaction was as expected. Wei Caizhu suppressed the excitement in her heart, stood up, and said, Master, now that little bitch Ling Yusheng is going to the Ling family with Ouyang Qing. I will arrange people to catch them. With that said, she turned to leave. However, just as she walked to the door, she suddenly felt a hand clasping her head. Immediately afterward, Wei Caizhu was horrified to find that the spiritual power and vitality in her body were madly rushing to the top of her head, and then they were all absorbed by the big hand above her. Ah! Master, spare me! Spare me! Wei Caizhu widened her eyes in horror and turned her head to look. At this time, the light outside the room shone in and finally illuminated the figure in the darkness. She saw the man who was close at hand and smiling at her. The expression on Wei Caizhu's face became more and more horrified. You are not master. Who are you? He, you don't need to know who I am anymore. The man stretched out his scarlet tongue and licked it gently, Cloud-piercing city and Ouyang family, these two damn places, I have stayed long enough, and I am tired of staying. When I swallow the most delicious prey, I will master the divine power, and all of you can die. Ha 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 ha. Wei Taiju's eyes widened, and her face was full of regret and despair. What kind of demon was she asking for help? But now, it was too late to regret. At the door between light and dark, Wei Taiju's body slowly fell. But the horror was that what fell on the ground was not a complete body, but only a bag of skin. His flesh, blood, and bones had all disappeared without a trace. This is my home. Looking at the dilapidated house in front of him, Ling Yusheng looked at Ouyang Qing in disbelief. A few years ago, when Ling Yusheng left Cloud-piercing city, the Ling family still lived in the most flourishing location in the city. Although their house was far from being as luxurious as the Ouyang family's, it still had the magnificent courtyard art museum. However, the house in front of him was located in the most remote corner of Cloud-piercing city, and it only had 2 entrances. The outer walls of the house were peeling off everywhere, and there were many traces of repair on the roof. In the cultivation continent, even a mortal would not live in such a desolate place. Moreover, Father Ling was a cultivator at the peak of Inedia. Ouyang Qing sighed and said, "Since you left, Uncle and Auntie have completely cut off their relationship with the Ouyang family. No matter how hard I tried to stop them, they would move to this place. The Ling family's things, whether it's the things I gave you in the past or the things Father gave Uncle, as long as it's related to the Ouyang family, they didn't take a single one." Coupled with Wei Taiju's constant pressure, the Ling family's days were getting worse. Ling Yusheng's hand pressed against the dusty, dilapidated door. He didn't know what he was feeling right now. His mind was still recalling the words his parents had scolded him back then. But at this time, seeing this dilapidated house, he couldn't help but regret it. For so many years, why didn't he think of coming back to see if his father, mother, and brother were doing well? The hand that pressed against the door exerted force. The wooden door creaked and was pushed open. Chapter 1837. What he saw was a deserted courtyard. A woman in coarse hemp clothes was sewing something with her head down. Her hair had turned white, and her eyesight was not very good. Furthermore, the clothes she was sewing had defensive attributes, so she had to sew according to the refining runes on the clothes. Therefore, every stitch was extremely strenuous. Seeing this, Ling Yusheng's eyes turned red, and he shouted, "Mother!" His voice startled the woman in the courtyard, and she slowly raised her head. When she saw Ling Yusheng, the woman's eyes suddenly widened, and she shouted in disbelief, "Little Sheng!" The needles and clothes in her hands fell to the ground, and she staggered to stand up, rubbing her eyes. Her voice was hoarse and trembling. "Little Sheng, why are you here?" Ling Yusheng cried and rushed over, kneeling in front of the woman. He couldn't hold back his tears anymore. "Mother, I'm sorry. Your unfilial son came back late." The woman's hand trembled, and she wanted to reach out and touch his head. However, the next moment, Ling Yusheng suddenly felt a strong force hit him, and his whole body was hit by a whip. How fast was Ling Yusheng? Even before he awakened his domain, his speed was already very fast. At this moment, how could he be hit by a mere whip? But when he saw who the whip was, he stopped in his tracks and took a hit. Little Sheng. Little 5. Ouyang Qing and the people of the Xiaoyaro school nervously rushed over. However, Ling Yusheng blocked their movements. He looked at the middle-aged man who was waving the whip, and choked with sobs, "Father. Shut up, I'm not your father, and I don't have a shameless son like you." Then, the middle-aged man swung the whip in his hand. Ouyang Qing reached out and grabbed the whip, not letting it hit Ling Yusheng. "Uncle Ling, listen to us." Before Ouyang Qing could finish, Ling Yusheng's father already cursed, "What uncle? I have nothing to do with your Ouyang family, and this shameless thing. All of you, get out of the Ling family." Ling Yusheng looked at Father Ling, then looked at Mother Ling, whose eyes were red, and could not help but choke with sobs. "Father, Mother, do you really not want to see me that much?" Ling's mother turned her head, avoided his eyes, and her voice returned to the same cold as before. "At that time, we had made it very clear that you were with a man, which was to lose the face of our Ling family. Xiao Sheng, you'd better leave. Hearing even his mother say so, Ling Yusheng only felt his heart being poured cold. Suddenly, a young man rushed out from behind Father Ling and fiercely pushed Ling Yusheng. Didn't you hear father and mother telling you to scram? Our Ling family doesn't welcome you, and Cloud-Piercing City doesn't welcome you either. Scram as far as you can. The one who rushed out was Ling Yusheng's brother, Ling Yuhao. The clothes on his body were also dusty. He was clearly not even 30 years old, but his appearance seemed to have been through the vicissitudes of life. His back was even a little hunched. But at this time, the way he scolded Ling Yusheng was like a raging lion. Ouyang Qing supported Ling Yusheng, who was almost pushed down, and loudly said, "Uncle, auntie, brother Ling, what happened that year was not Xiaosheng's fault. If you want to blame someone, blame me." Chapter 1838. Who else can we blame but him? Ling Yuhao roared hysterically. If it wasn't for him, how could my engagement have been ruined? How could I have been expelled by master? Our Ling family moved from our original mansion to this dilapidated place. Isn't it all because of him? Now, he actually has the face to come back. Is it because he thinks that he hasn't harmed us enough? Is it because he wants us to leave Cloudpiercer City? Ling Yuhao's eyes stared fixedly at the pale-faced youth in front of him who was on the verge of collapse. Ling Yusheng, if you still have a little bit of conscience and a little bit of self-awareness, then get the hell out of Cloudpiercer City immediately and never appear before us again. The people of the Xiaoyaro sect couldn't bear it anymore. Leng Yumor sneered, "Did my fifth brother kill someone or let me go? Why do you look down on him so much? Just because he likes men? So you don't even want to recognize him as your son? Are there any cold-blooded parents and brothers like you in this world?" Luo Yu said with a straight face, "Feelings can't be forced. Liking men or liking women isn't something that fifth brother can choose for himself. It's fine if others don't understand fifth brother, but you, as his family, treat him like this. You don't deserve to be his parent." Leng Yumor and Luo Yu's words didn't make the Ling family feel ashamed. Instead, their expressions became colder. Even Ling Yuhao's mother put away her reluctance and said coldly, "Liking men is disgusting and perverted. Although our Ling family is a small family, we have always been clean and will never tolerate a son who tarnishes our family's reputation. Ling Yusheng, if you still remember how we raised you, get out of the Ling family, get out of Cloud City, and never let us see you again." Ling Yuhao said, "Yes, get out. Don't ever come back." Ling Yuhao's father lashed out with his whip again, and Ouyang Qing quickly blocked it for Ling Yusheng. "Did you hear that? Get out of here, all of you." The shabby wooden door was slammed shut. Even outside, the Ling family's roars and curses could be heard. The sunlight was obviously warm when it fell on his body, and the breeze was gentle when it caressed his face, but Ling Yusheng only felt a bone-chilling coldness. Ouyang Qing hugged him tightly. Her voice was cold and trembling, and her heart was bleeding. "It's my fault, it's all my fault. Xiao Sheng, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let you come back. Little Sheng, don't be sad. They don't want you, I want you. Let's go, let's leave Cloud-Piercing City now. I don't want to stay a moment longer in this damned place." He was different from Ling Yusheng. The father-son relationship between him and Ouyang Xiangdong had always been thin. Coupled with the fact that he had not been home for the past 2 years and Ouyang Xiangdong had been engrossed in his cultivation, the father-son relationship between the two had long been worn away. Before Ling Yusheng was discovered to have feelings for him, Ling father, Ling mother, and Ling Yuhao doted on him, this youngest son. Even though they had betrayed Ling Yusheng when he was at his most miserable. However, there was still a trace of hope in Ling Yusheng's heart. Perhaps, his parents and brother were really just angry for a moment, and after the anger subsided, they would forgive him. But that wasn't the case. He recalled the disgusted eyes of his parents and brother, the vicious insults, and the merciless act of driving him away. Ling Yusheng only felt a pain in his chest, and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 1839. Xiaosheng, Xiaowu. Bastard, I'll go in and teach them a lesson right now. Do you think our family's Xiaowu can be trampled by just anyone? Ling Yusheng stopped the furious Leng Yumor and the murderous Ouyang Qing. He stood up shakily, knelt down in front of the closed door, and kowtowed 3 times. When he raised his head again, there was a big wound on his forehead, and blood was flowing out. But he didn't even wipe it, and said hoarsely, "Father, mother, brother, don't worry, I will never come back." Saying that, he took out a Qiankuan bag and threw it over the wall. "This is my savings for the past few years. Consider it as my repayment for your kindness in raising me." After saying that, he wiped the tears and blood on his face, stood up, and walked back to the Xiaoyaro school. Ling Yusheng met the concerned eyes of Yun Ruohan and the others, and Ouyang Qing's anxious expression. Tears flashed in his eyes, but they didn't flow down again. "Senior brother, senior sister, junior sister, brother Qing, from now on, I only have you." Yun Ruohan patted Ling Yusheng's shoulder. "Silly, you should say that you will always have us by your side. This cloud-piercing city is boring, let's go." Ouyang Qing nodded repeatedly. "Yes, let's go. I don't want to stay in such a place for a moment longer. We don't need such relatives. Xiaosheng, it's enough for us to have each other in the future." The group quickly arrived at the gate of cloud-piercing city. When they were about to leave the city, Muyan couldn't help but look back in the direction of the Ling family. Yun Ruohan asked, "Junior sister, what's wrong?" Muyan slightly frowned, and her expression was a little subtle. "I always feel that something is wrong." "What's wrong?" Chu Moli, who was standing to the side, suddenly spoke up as well. "Has little junior sister also sensed it?" Muyan was startled, and looked at Chu Moli, blinking. "I thought it was just my illusion." So third senior brother also felt it. Everyone was confused by their tongue-twisting riddles. "Junior sister, third brother, what are you talking about? I know you two are smart, so don't beat around the bush." Mu Yang thought for a moment and said, "How should I put it? I'm a musician, so I'm more sensitive to all kinds of sounds. When a person speaks, their emotions fluctuate. Whether it's anger, disgust, hatred, or love, I can't say I'm 100% certain, but I can more or less feel it." Leng Yumor and the rest were still confused. Ling Yusheng's expression changed slightly. "Little junior sister, what do you mean by that?" Mu Yang said in a deep voice, "How about this, you guys wait here for me, I'll go take a look first, I'll come back and tell you what it means." Just as she was about to leave, she heard a commotion in the city. Many people on the street began to run frantically, and some even ran towards the city gate. Behind them, the gates of Cloudpiercer City that were originally wide open began to close. Luo Yu asked suspiciously, "What's going on? The sun is still high in the sky, why would they close the city gates?" Waves of panicked shouts came from the crowd. Quickly go home. The Ouyang family's Iron Eagle Guard has been dispatched, and the leader is the Ouyang family head." "What? Iron Eagle Guard? That's the Ouyang family's death squad that kills without spilling blood." Chapter 1840. His voice was trembling. "Who will suffer this time?" Ouyang Qing's face changed. "Iron Eagle Guard. Why did my father send out the Iron Eagle Guard?" The Iron Eagle Guard was a group of men of sacrifice raised by the Ouyang family. Although their cultivations were not high, they were all desperados with blood on their hands. Ouyang Qing was very disapproving of the Ouyang family raising the Iron Eagle Guard. She even wanted to directly disband the Iron Eagle Guard after taking over the Ouyang family. Therefore, the Iron Eagle Guard was now in Ouyang Xiangdong's hands. Where did the Iron Eagle Guard and the Ouyang family head go? They went to the west, to the westernmost part of the city. The westernmost part? Ling Yusheng's eyes widened, and his heart tightened. That was the direction of the Ling family's house. In the sky, dark clouds had covered the sun. The originally clear sky was now dark and gloomy. The entire cloud-piercing city made people feel as if they were suffocating. Ouyang Qing looked to the west, where the clouds were the thickest. He didn't know why, but he suddenly had a bad feeling. He grabbed Ling Yusheng's hand and said in a low voice, "Sheng, let's go." We need to leave the city before the gate is completely closed. Behind them, the city gate creaked and slowly closed. They were standing at the gate. If they took one step forward, they would be locked inside. If they took one step back, they would have to leave the city. The people of the Xiaoyaro school also looked at Ling Yusheng. Ling Yusheng suddenly looked at Mu Yang and said in a hoarse voice, "Junior sister, what do you mean?" Mu Yang sighed, "I don't know if you noticed that there is a jade pendant on your father's waist, and the tassels under it are exactly the same as this one." She took out a pouch from her waist. There was a tassel under the pouch, which was woven with red silk. It looked like a knot, but not exactly the same. "Do you remember, senior brother? When you gave me this pouch, you said that your grandmother taught you how to weave the tassels. Only a very skillful hand could weave them. After your grandmother passed away, you were the only one in the entire Ling family who could make up stories." Ling Yusheng's eyes widened abruptly, his chest rose and fell violently, and his face was filled with disbelief and astonishment. How can a father who hates and loathes his son so much keep something that his son gave him with him all the time? Fifth senior brother, your father, your mother, and your older brother drove you away so resolutely. Was it really because they hated you? Or, do I want to risk my life to protect you? Ouyang Manor. The old wooden door was smashed open with a bang. A tall black figure strode into the Ling family's front door. Ling Fu, Ling Mu, and Ling Yu Hao seemed to have expected something as they sat quietly in the courtyard. Seeing the person enter the door, only Father Ling stood up and made a symbolic bow. "Greetings, Ouyang family head." Ouyang Xiangdong's gaze swept across the room, and his expression suddenly darkened. "Where's Ling Yusheng?" Father Ling said lightly, "I don't know what you are talking about. There is no Ling Yusheng in our Ling family." Ouyang Xiangdong suddenly raised his hand and grabbed the air. Father Ling suddenly felt as if something was clasping his neck, and his whole body was involuntarily pulled in front of Ouyang Xiangdong. Chapter 1841. "Old thing, don't play tricks with me," Ouyang Xiangdong sneered. "Someone saw Ling Yusheng coming to your Ling family. Speak, where is he?" Ling Yusheng's father's face turned purple as he opened his mouth wide and let out painful groans. He said with difficulty, "That shameless scoundrel actually likes men. How can my Ling family tolerate him?" Ouyang Xiangdong's expression was sinister. "This seat allowed your Ling family to jump around in Cloud-Piercing City for so long because I thought Ling Yusheng might still be alive. As long as you are here, he will definitely come back. If you obediently tell me where he is, I'll let it go. Otherwise, I'll let your entire Ling family die a slow and painful death." Saying so, he waved his hand. Immediately, someone rushed into the Ling family's room and pulled out a young woman. The young woman was still holding an infant in her arms. When she was pulled out, her hair was a mess and her face was full of panic. Seeing Ling Yuhao, she immediately cried out, "Husband, save me and the child." Ling Yuhao roared and rushed towards the woman. "Let them go." However, his cultivation was too low and he was sent flying by a kick from the Iron Eagle Guard. Ouyang Xiangdong tossed his father aside and strode to the baby. He lifted the swaddling cloth and slowly said, "Ling Yuhao, I think you should be very clear about which one is more important, a younger brother or a son. As long as you obediently tell me Ling Yusheng's whereabouts, your son will naturally be fine. But if you don't..." He shook the infant in his hand, "then you will see it fall to the ground in front of your eyes." "No. Don't hurt my child." The young woman cried and rushed over, wanting to snatch back her child. However, before she could get close to Ouyang Xiangdong, she was kicked away by the Iron Eagle Guard. Different from Ling Yuhao, the young woman was only an ordinary person with a body forging cultivation. Ling Yuhao married her after the Ling family declined and the original engagement was cancelled. Being kicked by the Iron Eagle Guard, she immediately vomited blood and fainted. "Ah Fang." Ling Yuhao hugged his blood-covered wife and looked at the child in Ouyang Xiangdong's hand, screaming crazily, "Kill me if you have the ability. Don't touch my child." The Iron Eagle Guard also caught Ling's mother and put the sharp steel knife on her neck. The child in Ouyang Xiangdong's arms wailed, as if he was shouting, "Daddy, save me." "Hehe, you'd better think carefully. For a single Ling Yusheng, is it really worth it to let the entire Ling family fall apart, to let your own wife and children be separated? Ouyang Xiangdong's expression grew more leisurely as a cruel and bloodthirsty smile bloomed on his face. I'll count to 3. If you don't tell me where Ling Yusheng is by then, don't blame me for being impolite. Ling Yuhao closed his eyes. 2 streams of blood tears rolled down his cheeks. I'll talk. Don't say it. I can't say it. Ouyang Xiangdong, Xiao Sheng is the hope of the Ling family. I will not let him be destroyed by your hand. Father Ling glared at the people in the garden and said, Ouyang Xiangdong, Xiao Sheng is the hope of the Ling family. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly pulled out a long whip and lashed it at Ouyang Xiangdong. However, Ouyang Xiangdong only raised his hand and caught the long whip. He threw him to the ground and fiercely stepped on his hand. With a cracking sound, Ling Yuhao's father let out a mournful howl and almost fainted. Chapter 1842. Mother Ling's face was full of tears, and she was about to rush towards the blade. Yuhao, protect little Sheng, don't care about us. However, her cultivation was too low, and before the blade could cut her throat, she was slapped in the face. Then, the Iron Eagle Guard's punches and kicks rained down on her body. Stop hitting. Don't hit my father and mother, please stop. Ouyang Xiangdong seemed to be enjoying the Ling family's crying, and then looked at Ling Yuhao. Tell me, where is Ling Yusheng? Ling Yuhao looked at him with red eyes, and his mouth suddenly pulled into a shallow smile. This little brother of mine has been especially delicate since he was young. He would cry loudly if he bumped into something. He was such a small ball, and when he cried, he was so pitiful and cute, making me want to give him the best in the world. So, when he was very young, I swore to protect this little brother. Ouyang Xiangdong looked at him impatiently. Who told you to say this? Do you not want your son's life? Ling Yuhao ignored Ouyang Xiangdong, and continued, but I did not expect that after so many years, that soft little ball of a crybaby had actually grown up. He became so strong, and there were many people around him who sincerely cared for him, loved him, and protected him. When I thought that he was my little brother, when I thought that the little brother I wanted to protect had become so outstanding, I felt proud from the bottom of my heart. As he spoke, the gentle expression on his face suddenly turned into mockery. Ouyang Xiangdong, didn't you say you wanted to find little Sheng? Let me tell you, he has already left Cloud-Piercing City, you can't find him, and you can never hurt him. Even if my Ling family is all dead, little Sheng will still be alive. One day, he will come back, and bring glory to my Ling family, and also take revenge on you, you bastard, just you wait. Ouyang Xiangdong's face became completely gloomy, and he gritted his teeth. It seems that you really don't want your son's parents' lives. Fine, then I will fulfill your wish. He threw the baby in his hand high up. In midair, the baby let out a heart-wrenching cry. A long sword shrouded in black mist suddenly appeared in Ouyang Xiangdong's hand, and he slashed at the infant who was falling from the sky. Ling Yuhao's eyes were filled with despair and guilt, but he didn't close his eyes. Instead, he looked straight at the baby falling from the sky and muttered, Child, don't be afraid. Daddy and Mommy will be with you soon. Our family will be reunited underground, never to be separated. Then, he would see his only brother in the underworld, safely and happily, living a long and long life. At this moment, the sound of a zither suddenly drifted over from the sky like a storm. Then, a figure flashed in the sky and swept away the baby in the air like a bolt of lightning. The figure fell a shadow in the air and finally stopped beside Ling's mother who was beaten. With a few loud bangs, the Iron Eagle Guard who beat Ling's mother was kicked away. The lightning-fast figure finally stopped moving and slowly revealed itself. Ling Yuhao's eyes widened when he saw the newcomer. Father Ling and Mother Ling could not help but exclaim, Little Sheng. They saw a thin youth holding the crying baby in one hand and slowly helping Ling's mother up with the other. Seeing his mother covered in bruises and his father with a broken arm, the youth could no longer hold back the tears in his eyes. Chapter 1843. Seeing his mother covered with cuts and bruises, and his father with a broken arm, The youngster could no longer hold back the tears in his eyes. Dad, Mom, brother, how could you do this? How could they disregard their own lives to protect him? How could they let him misunderstand them and hate them just to protect him? Seeing her youngest son standing beside her, Ling Yusheng's mother's body swayed, her eyes filled with despair. Little Sheng, why did you come back? Go quickly. Ling Yuhao also reacted, loudly roaring, Idiot, who let you come back? Didn't I tell you to get out of cloud-piercing city? Ling Yusheng's father's old tears flowed down. The pain on his face was even worse than when his arm was trampled. It's over, everything is over. If you want to leave, then leave. Why do you have to come back? Ling Yusheng took a deep breath, wiped the tears on his face, gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, I am a Ling family member, your son, brother. You want me to leave you alone? Absolutely impossible. Even if we really have to leave, our whole family must leave together. Ling Yusheng's words stunned Ling Yusheng's parents and Ling Yuhao. Only at this moment did they realize that their soft and cuddly youngest son, that thin and weak boy who liked to act spoiled, had finally grown up. Ha 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 ha. Ouyang Xiangdong suddenly burst into a carefree laughter. Ling Yusheng, you came and you still want to leave, stop dreaming. Today, your Ling family members, don't even think of leaving here alive. And Ling Yusheng, this delicious little guy, would naturally become his prey, the most important nourishment for his great success in his divine skill. Ouyang Xiangdong looked up and down at Ling Yusheng, recalling his ghostly speed just now, and couldn't help but lick his lips. His prey seemed to have become stronger, and if he swallowed him, he would certainly recover to his peak. That's really great. I originally thought that after you escaped, it would probably take a lot of effort to catch you again. Ouyang Xiangdong greedily looked at Ling Yusheng. I didn't expect that you actually walked right into the trap and ran back. Ha ha ha, it's really God on this seat's side. As soon as Ouyang Xiangdong's voice fell, the melodious sound of a zither came from the sky. The rich spiritual energy and peculiar energy contained in the zither's music caused Ouyang Xiangdong to frown slightly and reveal a surprised expression. The next moment, the 6 people of the Xiao Yarrow sect and Ouyang Qing jumped off the flying boat. Seeing these people, especially Muyan, Ouyang Xiangdong's pupils shrink. The greed, excitement, and agitation in his eyes nearly overflowed like a tide. Nourishment, all of them are my nourishment. Ha 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 ha. I didn't expect that when I came to catch a small prey today, I would actually bump into so many better ones. In reality, Ouyang Qing was also an elite shoujo with extremely outstanding talent. However, compared to the people of the Xiao Yarrow sect, they were far from enough. This did not mean that Ouyang Qing's cultivation was inferior. It was because he was not born with heaven-defying talent. For example, Ling Yusheng's absolute space speed. From Ouyang Xiangdong's eyes, he could see that the spiritual roots of each and every member of the Xiao Yarrow sect were different from those of ordinary cultivators. Their bodies all emitted the fragrance of extremely delicious food. Especially the girl holding the zither, her spiritual root was covered with a layer of white mist, but the light it emitted made Ouyang Xiangdong's demonic eyes almost unable to open. Chapter 1844. And the fragrant aroma of her body can no longer be described as seductive. Instead, it's a desire that makes Ouyang Xiangdong almost go crazy. The only thing that he can't see through is probably the little boy that the girl is holding. The little boy's whole body seems to be covered by a powerful energy, even his demon eye can't see clearly. And Ouyang Xiangdong is instinctively afraid of that energy. But it doesn't matter. Without this little baby, it doesn't affect his meal at all. Ouyang Xiangdong swallows his saliva and laughs cruelly. Too delicious, simply too delicious. As long as I can devour all of you, not only will my injuries be healed, I can even directly recover to my peak. Ouyang Qing looks at Ouyang Xiangdong's familiar face, but only feels that there's nothing unfamiliar about it. This person clearly has his father's appearance. However, the details of his gestures, as well as the tone of his speech, are completely different from the father in his memory. Ouyang Qing says coldly, "You're not my father, who are you?" "Oh, so it's my Qing." Ouyang Xiangdong lets out a chuckle, "If I'm not your father, who can I be?" "Hey, Qinga, Your father has been very much like you all these years. Ouyang listens to his seemingly affectionate words, but he only feels a chill running down his spine. No. You're not my father. Where did you come from, demon? What did you do to my father? Ouyang doesn't answer his words, but greedily licks his lips again. Actually, you taste good. Previously, I couldn't touch you because I wanted to borrow Ouyang body and the identity of the Ouyang family's master. Today, I'll also devour you. Saying that, he waves his hand, capture them all for me. With that order, the Ling family's Iron Eagle guards immediately take out their weapons and mercilessly attack Muyan and the others. Muyan doesn't move, holding the Tian Mo Qin in her hand. Yun Ruohan, Leng Yumor, and Qin Ju make their moves in a flash. They only hear a few loud bangs, and more than a dozen fiendish Iron Eagle guards are directly overturned by the three people in just a moment. Ouyang pupils shrink, and he curses, waste, then suddenly disappears from his place. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Ling Yun's parents. His fingers formed into claws and reached out to grab their faces. Ling Yusheng's expression changed drastically. Father. Mother. However, no matter how fast he would not be able to save her at such a distance. Ouyang let out a sinister grin. If there was an easy way to solve it, why would he refuse? What's more, these prey were very precious, and he couldn't bear to destroy them. But at this moment, the sound of the zither rang out. An invisible wall of sound rose from the ground, blocking Ouyang and his parents. Mu Yang takes a step forward, and in the next moment, she's already in front of Ling Fu and Ling Mu. She even escorts Ling Yu Hao and his unconscious wife to the central room. Ling Yusheng's movements were also extremely fast. With a move of his feet, his figure had already disappeared. When he returned to his original spot, the child in his hand was already in Ling Yu Hao's hands. Mu Yang said solemnly, Xiao Bao, protect them well. Xiao Bao glanced at Ouyang and wanted to say something, but in the end, he obediently walked to the front of the central room. The evil warding sword appears in his hand, slanting into the ground, motionless. He's clearly just a 5-year-old child, but he has the kind of imposing manner of a single man holding the pass against 10,000 enemies. Chapter 1845. The fat rabbit also jumps out from the side and stands next to Xiao Bao. The 7 people of the Xiao Yarrow sect slowly walk together. When Ling Yusheng passes by Ouyang, he says softly, Qingji, please protect my family for me. Xiao Sheng. Ouyang says anxiously, I want to protect you. Ling Yusheng shakes his head, this battle, it's enough for us, the Xiao Yarrow sect. And the grudge between me and this person, or this demon, must be settled by me. With that, he steps forward and appears beside Mu Yang and the others in a blink of an eye. The demon binding silk and absorbing magic needle appear in his hands, gently swaying. Ouyang face shows a struggling expression, but she still guards the Ling family with Xiao Bao. Ouyang looks at the Xiao Yarrow 7, who are ready for battle, and can't help but laugh. Little guys, do you really think you're qualified to fight me? Mu Yang plucks the Tian Mo Qin in her hand and sneers, whether I'm qualified or not, I'll know after I try. As soon as her voice falls, the people of the Xiao Yarrow sect have already soared into the sky. Everyone's speed is so fast that one can only see their after images. The power of each sword and each blade can make the earth shake. Especially Yun Ruohan, Leng Yumor, and Ling Yusheng who have opened their domain. Even if Ouyang and the Ling family are just spectators, they are already shocked and almost suffocated. Ling Fu murmurs, is this Xiao Sheng? Is this really our Xiao Sheng? Ling Yuhao can't help but shed tears. Our Xiao Sheng has grown up. When he told Ouyang that Ling Yusheng has become stronger, it was only a vague feeling. However, that feeling is far from the shock of witnessing his brother's growth. Unknowingly, their son, their younger brother, had become so powerful. Ouyang is ashamed and proud. Xiao Sheng has always been the best. He doesn't care if he is inferior to Ling Yusheng or not. Seeing how powerful Xiao Sheng is, he is happier than anyone else. He just hates himself for being weak and unable to protect Xiao Sheng. However, the offensive of the Xiao Yarrow 7 is so fierce, but Ouyang Xiangdong is strolling leisurely in the midst of swords and blades. He doesn't seem to put them in his eyes at all. He even has a calm smile on his face. This little guy's strength has indeed exceeded my expectations. However, to want to deal with this seat, you all are still very inexperienced. As soon as he finished speaking, his empty hands suddenly swelled up and turned into 2 black devil claws. A bone-chilling evil aura wrapped around his demonic claws as he viciously swiped at Luo Yu, who was closest to him. Clang! With a crisp sound, the black demonic claw was stopped in midair by a crystal-clear long sword. Ouyang Xiangdong originally did not think much of this sword. But very quickly, he felt a burning pain on his devil claw. With a cracking sound, half of his demonic claw was sliced off. Ouyang Xiangdong let out a muffled groan and retreated like lightning, just as he was about to regroup and attack again. However, he did not expect that the transparent longsword was even faster than him, and once again approached him. Following them was a young girl with a lazy smile on her face, but her eyes were as cold as ice. The air was filled with the melodious sound of a zither. Lotus Steps, activated. Shun Musician Level 5 skill, using the sound of the zither to drive the body's rhythm, through the method of burning spiritual power to obtain strange body movements and speed. Chapter 1846. At this moment, Muyan is evenly matched with 2 golden immortals of the Shoshen continent. At this moment, Muyan is even faster than Ling Yusheng, who has the absolute domain. Whoosh! Ouyang Xiangdong feels a tearing pain in his chest and abdomen. The 7 absolutes sword slashes across his abdomen. Immediately after, the wound burns with raging flames. The blazing pain makes Ouyang Xiangdong let out a shrill scream. Muyan stops, the zither music stops, and the burning of spiritual power from Lotus Blooming Step also disappears. She's panting slightly, and her face is a little pale. With her current cultivation, Lotus Blooming Step consumes too much of her spiritual power and vitality. Junior sister, are you all right? Muyan doesn't answer. Instead, she gently plucks the zither strings, activating the echo sound to replenish the spiritual power of the 7 people. Her eyes are unblinkingly looking in Ouyang Xiangdong's direction. The fire in Ouyang Xiangdong's abdomen is burning more and more fiercely. Slowly, the skin in other parts of his body is also burning. His screams are also getting sharper and sharper. His hands cover his face, as if he wants to peel off his own skin. Ouyang Qing's complexion changes, and is about to rush over. Father. Muyan holds the zither horizontally, blocking his way. Don't come close. The people of the Xiaoyaro sect and Ouyang Qing all look at Muyan in surprise. Junior sister, isn't he finished? Looking at Ouyang Xiangdong's appearance, he's already at the end of his rope, on the verge of death. But why is junior sister's expression becoming more and more serious? Chu Moli slowly says, he's not finished, but he's planning to abandon this body of his. Jie jie jie, ha ha ha, a creepy, hair-raising laughter came from Ouyang Xiangdong. But strangely, that voice is clearly not Ouyang Xiangdong's. This voice is sometimes sharp, sometimes feminine, sometimes vigorous, and sometimes hoarse. It's as if several voices are pieced together. The dark clouds in the sky are getting thicker. Thick black gas surges out of Ouyang Xiangdong's body. The originally warm weather of early summer is now making people feel a bone-piercing chill. The 7 people of the Xiaoyaro sect have extremely serious expressions, and they clench their swords. Almost at the same time, Ouyang Xiangdong slowly climbs up. No. The one who got up was not Ouyang Xiangdong. This was because Ouyang Xiangdong's body, which was covered in wounds and burn marks, was lying quietly on the ground. In front of them was a tall man shrouded in a black aura. The man's face was long and narrow, his nose was like a ditch, and his eyes were reddish-brown. His expression seemed to be excited and agitated as he stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. But the tongue was as thin and long as a snake's. As for his hands and feet, they were different from ordinary people. They looked like the black demonic claws that he had just seen. Father. Ouyang Qing rushed over to help Ouyang Xiangdong up. When she found that he was only unconscious and still breathing, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he stared coldly at the strange demon. "What kind of demon are you? Why did you possess my father?" Before Ouyang could finish his words, his face suddenly changed and he quickly tried to retreat. However, this demon dweller's speed was so fast that ordinary people could not even imagine it. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Ouyang, and its claw was aimed at his face. Ouyang quickly raised her sword to block, but there was a loud bang. Chapter 1847. His long sword, an 8th-grade spiritual artifact, was easily broken into pieces. The jet-black claws, emitting devil energy, also clasps onto his neck. "Qingji!" Ling Yusheng yells, and his figure rushes out like lightning. At the same time, he releases the absolute space domain. "Ha ha ha, do you think that this seat is still that waste, Ouyang Xiangdong?" The demon man shouts, and his empty hand fiercely waves in the air. Originally, Ling Yusheng's movements, which ordinary people can't see clearly, are like slow motion in his eyes. With this wave of the claw, Ling Yusheng suddenly feels a sharp pain in his chest. Blood splatters, and his whole body flies out. Xiaowu. The complexions of Muyan and the others greatly change. She doesn't even have time to play the Tianmo Qin, and can only instantly transform into the 7 absolute swords. Stepping on the lotus blooming steps, she swiftly attacks the demon man. With the 7 of them working together, even the nascent soul stage Tian Heibo can be easily killed in seconds. But facing the demon man in front of them, they only feel that every step is difficult. Not long after, the 7 of them are stained with blood. The demon man slaps Yun Ruohan, Leng Yumor, Qin Ju, and Ouyang away. He suddenly spits out a mouthful of evil qi. The evil qi tumbles like thick smoke, turning into a gale and a huge wave in front of everyone. Ling Yusheng, Luo Yu, and Chu Moli are all swept away by this hurricane. The 7 heavily fall from a high place, and one by one, they spurt out blood, unable to get up for a long time. The only one who can still stand in front of the demon man is Muyan, holding the 7 absolute swords and stepping on the lotus blooming steps. However, her complexion is as pale as paper, and cold sweat falls from her forehead like rain. At this moment, her body is even weaker than the 2 golden immortals of the Tianyi men. On the Xiuzhen continent, a golden immortal's strength is greatly weakened. In addition, the evil qi that lingers on the demon man's body all the time is rapidly consuming the spiritual power in her body. At this time, she is already like an arrow at the end of its flight, and could fall at any time. The demon man looks at the girl's beautiful face close to him. He lifts his claws and stops Muyan's thrusting sword. He once again lets out a strange laughter. "Not bad, not bad. This seat has lived for hundreds of years, but I have never seen such an outstanding little girl like you. If it weren't for the fact that I urgently need nourishment to repair my demonic body, I would have raised you as a successor of my blood demon sect. Hey, little girl, how about this? You go and dig out the spiritual roots of your senior and junior brothers and give them to me as offerings, and I will spare your life. I will make an exception and let you become my disciple. How about that?" Mu Yang meets the eyes of the demon cultivator. Her complexion is clearly pale, on the verge of collapse, but the corner of her mouth pulls out a mocking smile without fear. "You want me to be your disciple? Let's wait until you're qualified to carry my master and junior martial uncle's shoes first." As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of the zither rang out, and the 7 absolutes sword in his hand instantly split into 7 parts. Prison drawing ground, activated. 7 ultimate sword spirits, activate. Sound blade, activated. Bang, bang, bang. A few loud bangs rang out as they landed on Devil Jusho's head. Instantly, blood splattered everywhere, and he let out a miserable cry. However, the last strand of spiritual power in Mu Yang's body is finally exhausted, and it sways a little. But she didn't fall, because a cold, blood-stained hand is firmly clasping her neck. The fingernails, along with the yin qi, are slowly penetrating the skin of her neck. Junior sister, 6th sister, mother, Xiao Bao doesn't hesitate to step on the evil warding sword and soar into the sky, rushing straight towards Zhu Sha. Chapter 1848. The sword of exorcism slashed through Zhu Sha's demonic body, causing him to groan. The fat rabbit also rushed out from the side and bit him on the shoulder. Damn bastard! Zhu Sha roared and threw Mu Yang away. At the same time, he slapped Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit away. At this time, he looked very embarrassed. His face was full of holes, which were left by Mu Yang's 7 sword spirits and the sound blades. His shoulders and back were wounded by the sword of exorcism and the fat rabbit. His demonic energy was also consumed by half. Although he looked impressive, the demonic body that he had repaired all these years was ruined at this moment. Zhu Sha's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He suddenly roared, and the black energy on his body turned into countless black threads, flying towards each Iron Eagle guard. The black silk wrapped around the Iron Eagle guards and instantly devoured their flesh and blood, leaving only their skins that softly fell to the ground. Seeing this scene, the people of the Xiaoyaro sect were shocked. The Ling family was so scared that they almost fainted. "You lowly bastards, how dare you destroy my demonic body? Jia jia jia. Today, even if my demonic body can't be restored, I will devour all of you." Yun Ruohan's face changed, and she screamed, "This is a method to burn the demonic body and increase strength for a short time. Everyone, run." Zhu Sha laughed. "Want to run? Do you think it's too late?" He grabbed the air with one hand, and Xiao Bao groaned. Xiao Bao's small body flew into the air, grabbed by the neck, and lifted in the air. Zhu Sha looked at Mu Yang with malicious eyes, opened his mouth, and licked with his slender tongue. "I don't know why, but I suddenly feel that as long as I swallow this little kid, my demonic body can not only be restored, but also become stronger." Before he burned the demonic body, his strength was equal to that of an out-of-body stage cultivator. Now that he burned the demonic body, he reached his peak strength. He suddenly felt that the unfathomable little guy exuded a tempting smell. As long as he swallowed him, Zhu Sha opened his mouth. "Xiao Bao." Mu Yang saw Xiao Bao in Zhu Sha's hand, and her eyes turned red. The originally dried-up spiritual power in his body suddenly surged out in strands. She flew up and activated her lotus step by step. This time, her movements were twice as fast as before. When the evil spirit was about to swallow Xiao Bao, she suddenly threw out her zither strings and pulled Xiao Bao back. He replaced Xiao Bao and slammed into the 9 evil spirits. The evil spirit staggered, but he didn't panic. His demonic claws reached towards Mu Yang's chest, and actually pierced through her shoulder, locking her in place. "Hey, you'd be the same. Your taste isn't any worse than that of the little doll. This, what kind of spirit root is this? It's actually 100 times stronger than an ordinary heavenly spirit root. If I absorb it, am I afraid that I won't be able to achieve great success? Ha 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 ha. I've really profited big this time. Mother." As soon as Xiao Bao landed on the ground, he cried and wanted to throw himself at her. "Junior sister." The people of the Xiaoyaro sect also roared and crawled up, rushing towards Zhu Sha. But it was too late. The demonic energy in Zhu Sha's body surged and wrapped around Mu Yang. In just a blink of an eye, he would be able to suck Mu Yang until only her skin was left. Chapter 1849. However, at this moment, Mu Yan slowly raises her head. The girl's complexion is deathly pale, and the hair on her forehead is wet with sweat, drooping down, covering her eyes. When she raises her head, she finds that those peach blossom eyes are so bright, so resplendent, as if they contain all the stars in the sky. Looking at Mu Yan's smile, the 9 demon is startled. An inexplicable panic surges in his heart. He calms himself down, and quickly activates his devil arts, speeding up the process of devouring Mu Yan. However, the next moment, shock and amazement make him widen his eyes. That's because he finds that not only did the devil arts not absorb any flesh and blood energy for him. On the contrary, The spiritual power in his body seems to be pulled by something, and frantically rushes downwards. That's where Muyan's dantian is. The blood on his shoulder flows down his clothes, and even the clothes on his abdomen are wet and dyed red with blood. But at this moment, that red color has become so dim and inconspicuous. Because a dazzling silver light emits from Muyan's dantian, slowly forming a whirlpool. The speed of the whirlpool's rotation is slow at first, but then it gets faster and faster. The Nine Demon feels that the evil chi in his body is pouring out like a broken dam. He is almost scared out of his wits, and quickly shakes off Muyan. Muyan stumbles and falls to the ground, but she doesn't fall down. Instead, she sits cross-legged. The Tianmo Qin, with no one playing it beside him, starts to jingle by itself. Along with the sound of the zither, all the spiritual power in the sky above the Ling family, and even in the entire cloud-piercing city, starts to rush towards Muyan. And at the center of her dantian, the white light becomes brighter and brighter, more and more translucent. It gradually condenses into a small ball. The Nine Demon gasps, almost unable to believe what he's seeing. Core formation. She's forming her core. Yes, at this moment. At this critical moment, Muyan finally breaks through the last bottleneck of the fasting stage, forming a perfect core. The spiritual power condenses into a bead, and slowly takes shape inside her body. And in her moon spiritual root, after the water and fire, there is a third attribute, wood. A silver moon slowly appears behind her, and there seems to be 9 stars revolving around it silently. Not to mention the 9 evil spirits, even the people of the Xiao Yarrow sect were stunned. It wasn't that they had never seen a core formation cultivator before, but they had never seen a core formation cultivator cause such a huge commotion. The ominous feeling in evil spirit's heart grew stronger and stronger. A murderous intent appeared in his eyes. The strangeness of Mu Yang's body, as well as the powerful energy she was emitting, made him feel uneasy. He always felt that if he continued, there would be more things that he did not want to see. Then, before she successfully formed her gold core, she would kill him first. Thinking of this, the 9 evil spirits did not hesitate at all. He surged all the demonic energy in his body and attacked Mu Yang fiercely. This attack was even more powerful and ruthless than the one he had just used against the 7 people from the Xiao Yarrow sect. If it really struck Mu Yang's body, Mu Yang, who had yet to successfully form her gold core, would really die. Who said you could touch our junior sister? Lung Yumor and Yun Ruohan immediately soared into the sky with their swords in hand. Zhu Shou raised his hand to block their attacks without a care. The battle just now had allowed him to understand the strength of this group of people. Although these little fellows' talent was indeed heaven-defying, they were still young and their cultivation was low. You want to fight me? Ha ha, you must be dreaming. Chapter 1850. However, after blocking Lung Yumor and Yun Ruohan's attack with his demonic claws, Zhu Shou didn't take it as easily as before. Instead, he staggered back a step. The demonic energy in his chest surged, causing his face to change. He raised his head abruptly and saw an unbelievable scene. Lung Yumor and Yun Ruohan's dantian also began to light up, and a rotating vortex appeared. And in the entire cloud crossing city, a small part of the spiritual energy that was attracted by Muyan went to the 2 of them. These 2 people actually broke through the gold core realm on the battlefield. How is this possible? Zhu Shou couldn't believe his eyes. Not only did Muyan advance, but now there were 2 more? These little bastards, where did these monsters come from? However, Zhu Shou quickly calmed down. Even if Lung Yumor and Yun Ruohan had advanced to the gold core realm, even if their strength was far stronger than ordinary gold core realm cultivators. But in his eyes, they were just a few slightly troublesome fleas. Zhu Shou snorted coldly, and the demonic energy in his body suddenly surged to his palm. In his demonic claws, a long black sword slowly appeared. The long sword was completely black, but the body of the sword was burning with reddish-brown flames, which reflected the color of Zhu Shou's eyes. Although it was burning with flames, the appearance of this demonic sword gave people a bone-chilling feeling. That kind of coldness seemed to be able to drill directly into people's bones, making them stiff and unable to move. Today, it is your honor to die under my bloodhand sword. The long sword swung towards Yun Ruahan and Lang Yumor. In an instant, the reddish-brown flames on the sword turned into a giant python, sweeping towards the two people. The melodious sound of the zither reverberated in the sky above the Ling family, getting louder and louder, becoming more and more soul-stirring. Bright light emitted from Muyin and the Tian Mo Qin, enveloping the people of the Xiaoyaro sect. Countless tiny specks of light seeped into their bodies one by one, modifying their bodies. Zhu Shao and the people of the Xiaoyaro sect didn't notice this. The giant python formed by the demonic sword quickly wrapped around Yun Ruahan and Lang Yumor. Originally, this sword energy was not very sharp. However, the baleful aura contained within it caused one's limbs to stiffen and their spiritual energy to stagnate, rendering them powerless to resist. On the other hand, Yun Ruahan and Lang Yumor had only just formed their gold cores. Being coiled by the red python, Xiao Chen immediately felt his body turn cold. His blood and qi froze, making it hard for him to breathe. After Zhu Shao slashes out with his sword, he no longer cares about the two. The bloodhand sword turns and slashes towards Muyin. However, just as he waved his sword, a figure suddenly appeared from the side. With a loud boom, he punched out. Nine Evil Spirit heard a cracking sound coming from the bones in his hand. The sharp pain made him scream and stagger back a few steps. In front of Muyin, the mountain-like Qin Ju retracts its fist, its legs slightly bent, assuming a horse stance. The nine evil spirits looked up in shock, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Because the Qin wine had also advanced. From the peak of Anidia, he stepped into the golden core stage in one step. Motherfucker, is there no end to the advancement? However, at the next second, something even more shocking happened. With the Qin wine as the center, a blazing energy suddenly spread out like a prairie fire. This fire wasn't blazing, it wasn't burning, but it carried the weight of Mount Tai. Chapter 1851. For a moment, Zhu Shao only feels that his hands and feet are as heavy as lead. At this time, Qin Ju has already punched out again. Boom. Zhu Shao quickly dodges at the critical moment, and then he sees that Qin Ju's punch directly smashing a rockery behind him into pieces. Qin Ju firmly blocks Muyin behind him, saying word by word, "No one can hurt little junior sister." Not. Dust flutters in the air, making Zhu Shao's gloomy face visible. At this time, the horror in his heart is already like a huge wave. His mind is constantly clamoring, where did these little Avilders come from? 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them are forming their gold cores on the battlefield. Forget about forming their gold cores, this big guy in front of him actually activated his domain on the battlefield. The earth-shattering, power domain, belongs to the 9 dazzling suns. Zhu Shao's eyes are rolling with strong fear and murderous intent. If I can't behead you little brats today, you will definitely become a great calamity for me in the future. That's right, his strength at this moment is indeed less than 10%. Even if he ignites his devil body, it's only a momentary burst. This kind of burst cannot last long, otherwise, he will never be able to recover in this life. After the burst, his strength is only infinitely close to the leaving aperture stage. If he was at his peak, he could easily crush these little brats. But the problem is that the strength of these boys and girls is advancing at a frightening speed. Just at the Anidia stage, they already have such cultivation. In a short battle, they can break through to gold core stage and activate their domain. If they were given a few more years, perhaps even if he was at his peak, he would not be their opponent. Now, the two sides have already become mortal enemies. Zhu Shao has a premonition that if he can't completely kill these 8 people today, in the future, these people will inevitably bring him unpredictable disasters. Die. These 7 people, together with that terrible little baby, all of them must die. Zhu Shao roars, his body suddenly doubles in size, black gas rolling around him. The arm that was fractured by Qin Ju's power is instantly healed by the infiltration of the devil body. His whole body soars, fiercely slashing towards Qin Ju. This sword is far from comparable to the one just now. The devil Qi once again transformed into a giant python, and slammed into Qin Ju's body with a loud bang. Qin Ju spat out a mouthful of blood, her body swaying. The python takes advantage of the situation and flies towards the meditating Muyan. "Don't hurt junior sister." Without hesitation, Qin Ju turned around and recklessly pounced over, using his own flesh and blood to block the demonic Qi giant python. Once again, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Evil Spirit was panting heavily, and there was sweat on his forehead. He kicked the unconscious Qin Ju away and was about to swing the bloody hand sword again. However, the next moment, Muyan and the Tianmo Qin, who are very close at hand, disappear together. Instead, the demon binding silk and demon absorbing needle flew towards him like lightning. Ling Yusheng's speed was so fast that human senses could barely capture it. His dantian also shone with a faint white light, slowly rotating and condensing into a bead. The demon binding silk and demon absorbing needles that were flying toward the 9 fiends were no longer as easy to block as before. With a poochie sound, the 3 needles pierced into his flesh. The devil Qi immediately fled as if it had met its nemesis. Chapter 1852. Ju Sho's skin and flesh make a sizzling sound, and the intense pain makes his whole face twist. Looking at the scene in front of him, Ju Sho feels a pain in his chest, and suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood. He's really going crazy. Another core formation. These 7 little bastards, one after another, were forming their gold cores right in front of his eyes. What do these bastards think he, Ju Sho, is? I'll kill you. I'll tear you bastards into pieces. Ju Sho's body suddenly soars into the air, and begins to spin violently. A terrible whirlwind, mixed with bone-chilling devil energy, frantically engulfs the entire Ling family, and even slowly spreads to Cloud-Piercing City. The Ling family members have already fainted with pale faces. The remaining grass in the courtyard withered the moment it came into contact with the devil Qi. In the houses around the Ling family, faint cries of horror, screams, and the sound of people fleeing can be heard. The devil energy converges into a black cloud in the air, gloomy, like the end of the world. Then Ju Sho shouts, and 8 streams of devil energy shoot out from the black cloud, heading straight for Xiao Yaro's 7 people and Xiao Bao. The fat rabbit's movements are extremely fast. With a leap, its body expands several times, and it swallows 4 streams of devil energy in one gulp. The Bixie sword is not to be outdone. The sword body catches the 4 streams of devil energy, and with a buzzing sound, it instantly swallows the devil energy without a trace. However, Ju Sho's devil energy is very aggressive, even though it's not strong. But after swallowing it, the fat rabbit and the Bixie sword immediately feel indigestion and are unable to move. At this time, the second wave of devil energy attack has fallen from the black cloud. But this time, all of the demonic energy attacks were concentrated on Mu Yang. At this moment, Ju Sho finally realizes. These 7 people have advanced one after another, and even broke through the domain realm. It's all related to Jun Mu Yang, who was the first to advance, and Qin beside her. Only by killing this woman, he, Ju Sho, can completely eliminate these big troubles. Ling Yusheng and Qin Ju do not hesitate to rush over and block Mu Yang. The 2 of them bear the 2 streams of devil energy, and they both spit out a big mouthful of blood. Their bodies are frozen by the devil energy, and they can no longer move. However, there are still 6 streams of devil energy, whistling down, and directly attacking Mu Yang. Mother! Xiao Bao shouted loudly, and his small body pounced forward. His immortal power surged out of his body without any concealment, and he wanted to use his young and tender body to withstand the 9 fiends' attack. Lil Treasure, you can't. Luo Yu's face was full of shock as she leaped forward and hugged Lil Treasure. If someone had to bear the attack for 6th senior sister, then it would be him. It definitely couldn't be that immature Xiao Bao. During the battle, the members of the Xiao Yaro sect broke through to the core formation stage one after another, and activated their domains. But he was the only one who was always so weak. He couldn't help at all and could only drag everyone down. If he could use his life to save Xiaobao and his sixth senior sister, he would have no regrets even if he died. The whistling sound of devil qi piercing through the air became louder and louder, and a bone-piercing chill lingered around his body, making all the blood in his body feel like it was about to freeze. Luo Yu closed her eyes and calmly waited for death to come. However, in the next moment, he felt a warm protection on his back. Then, there was a loud bang. The warm liquid flowed down his neck and into his clothes. Luo Yu's eyes widened as her body trembled uncontrollably. Chapter 1853. Xiaobao, who was in his arms, also screamed, "Eldest martial uncle, fourth martial uncle." Luo Yu's body stiffened, and he slowly and shakily turned around. He saw two figures standing in front of him. 3 streams of demon qi had pierced through their bodies. One of them was holding a saber, and the other was holding a sword. Blood kept gushing out of their mouths, but their bodies were straight and refused to fall. Luo Yu couldn't hold back his tears anymore. "Why? Eldest martial brother, fourth martial sister, why did you risk your lives to protect me?" He had always been the most useless person in the Xiao Yarou sect. It was clear that he was dead. He had left, and it wouldn't have affected anyone. "Fool, because you're our 7th martial brother." Yun Ruohan smiled and put her hand on the boy's head. "We, the Xiao Yarou sect, will always be a family. Little martial sister, Xiaobao, you, everyone, no one can be left behind." Luo Yu was stunned. At that moment, a frozen part of his chest seemed to be rolling and surging, as if it was about to burst out. Leng Yumo's body shook. Her face was pale, and her whole body seemed to be frozen. However, she put on a disdainful smile. "We, the Xiao Yarou sect, live together, and die together." Ling Yuxing and Qin Ju also stood up shakily and stood beside them. "We, the Xiao Yarou sect, live together, and die together. If you want to touch our little martial sister, you'll have to step over our dead bodies." Even Xiao Bao stood in front of Mu Yang, holding the Bixia sword with his back straight. He was his mother's son, and also a member of the Xiao Yarou sect. He would protect his mother at all cost. Only Chu Moli remained behind Mu Yang, sitting in a wheelchair with his eyes closed. His body was surrounded by a strange light, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. He didn't move at all. "Ha ha ha ha. Do you want to die together? Fine, I'll fulfill your wish." The demon qi in Zhu Shou's body surged toward the dark clouds in the sky again. Rumble, as if there was a flash of lightning, it landed on a small mountain behind the Ling family and razed it to the ground. "All of you, go to hell." Boom, the 8 streams of devil qi once again rushed out of the black cloud. This time, the top of the 8 streams of devil qi all turned into huge, bloody mouths, biting towards the people of the Xiao Yarou school. Zhu Shou's laughter was accompanied by a cold and shrill air-piercing sound, like a chilly wind from the depths of hell. However, Zhu Shou's laughter stopped abruptly in the next moment. His eyes widened in shock. A dazzling white light surged out from the 7 of them, gradually transforming into a huge ferocious beast. The vicious beast's entire body was snow-white, but there was a horn on its forehead that was as red as blood. A pair of large, bell-like eyes looked down at the evil spirit, and a cold and arrogant light appeared in his eyes. Evil spirit opened his mouth, and the sound that came out was almost incoherent. "Divine beast by Zi. Why is there a divine beast by Zi here? Impossible. Impossible. Wasn't that something that could only appear in? Even the Lan royal family of the Purple Cloud world can only summon a shadow." Luo Yu's eyes were pitch black and there was almost no focus in them. He slowly walked forward from the people of the Xiao Yarou school, and Bai Ziyi followed behind him. When the 8 streams of devil qi descended, Bai Ziyi raised his head and swallowed them into his stomach, as if he was eating snacks. Chapter 1854. Evil spirit looked at the young man walking towards him and took a few steps back. "You, who are you? Why can you summon Bai Ziyi?" Luo Yu spread his arms wide. Bai Zi seemed to have received some kind of instruction. It let out a strange roar and rushed towards Evil Spirit. Ah! Evil Spirit felt a sharp pain in his demonic body. He hurriedly waved his bloodhand sword to block. He was shocked and angry, but there was also a hint of fear. But soon, he noticed that the young man's body was swaying. His face turned as white as a sheet and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Luo Yu collapsed as if he couldn't take it anymore. Xiao Qi. Yun Ruohan rushed over to catch him. At the same time, Bai Zi disappeared into Luo Yu's body as if it was absorbed by a mysterious force. Yun Ruohan's eyes were filled with shock and joy, pride, and a hint of fear. He covered Luo Yu's eyes with his hand and murmured in a hoarse voice, "Xiao Qi, you've finally come this far." Evil Spirit came back to his senses. He covered his wounded demonic body and looked at the unconscious Luo Yu. His face was filled with fear and joy. Ha! Ha ha! Although I can summon Bai Zi, my body can't handle this huge power. Ha ha ha! So that's how it is. That's how it should be. But then, his eyes became more and more vicious. His face was twisted from either extreme fear or anger. The more he fought with these 7 brats, the more fear he felt. If it was said that he had wanted to capture these 7 little brats with heaven-defying spiritual roots and slowly digest and devour them one by one, then he had already abandoned this idea. Especially the girl who was glowing brighter and brighter. The zither music around her was getting louder and louder. It made Evil Spirit feel as if the sword of the Grim Reaper was hanging over his head, ready to fall at any time. The demonic energy in his body surged and his demonic body burned again. The bloodhand sword in Evil Spirit's hand suddenly burned with reddish-brown flames, turning the color of fresh blood. The dark clouds in the sky covered the sun. The barrier energy at the bottom of Heaven's End cliff seemed to be summoned. It boiled and spread, invading the entire cloud-traversing city. In the city, the citizens had already hidden in their houses, shivering in fear. However, he still felt that death was getting closer and closer. The Evil Spirit grinned and took a step forward, causing the ground to shake. "Even if I have to suffer serious injuries, I will definitely kill all of you." He didn't even think about swallowing one of them, because swallowing required time, and digesting even more so. The threat that these 7 people gave him had far surpassed his greed and desire to devour them. In front of Mu Yang, the people of the Xiao Yarrow school straightened their backs and faced the 9 evil spirits. However, there was a sense of heroism in his eyes. In the void, above the clouds that no one could see. When Star Wolf saw this scene, he finally could not sit still anymore. In a flash, he was about to rush out. However, a huge black saber blocked his way and blocked his way. Star Wolf said anxiously, "Defeating armies, what are you doing?" "Jun Shong asked me to guard the safety of Jun Muyan and the Little Master. This is a moment of life and death, I can't just ignore it, right?" Although he really hates Jun Muyan, he's hit a wall so many times that he's very clear about how important that woman is to Jun Shong. Chapter 1855. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was more important than the Emperor's own life. What's more, there was also his little master there. In fact, when the battle had just begun and he saw his young master being sent flying, he was already seething with anger and couldn't help but want to pounce on her. Defeating Armaz's cold voice reaches his ears. "Do you understand why Jun Shong had you guard Miss Jun and the little Gongzi, and not Ying Mai and Han Yi?" "Star Wolf, of course I know." Naturally, it was because he didn't get along with Jun Muyan, so he didn't care too much about the people of the Xiao Yarrow sect. Therefore, he could calmly judge when he needed help and when he didn't. Muyan wants to be a strong person who can stand shoulder to shoulder with Di Mingju, not a canary protected under his wings. If one wanted to become stronger, there was no better way than to fight on the edge of life and death. But the situation is already so dangerous. Defeating armies glanced at him, his usually cold face revealing a trace of a deep smile. "Star Wolf, aren't you underestimating our polar domain's future mistress too much? She's far stronger than you think. Furthermore, the situation in the Xiaoxian continent is constantly changing. If she wants to truly become the mistress of the polar domain, the storms that she will have to face in the future cannot be compared to this small disturbance. Hearing Defeating Army's words, Star Wolf finally stopped in his tracks. However, he was ready to strike. If the evil spirit managed to break through the Xiaoyaro sect's defensive line, he would immediately go down to help. This was the responsibility entrusted to him by the monarch of the Xiuxian continent. In any case, he absolutely cannot let the little master and Muyan suffer irreversible harm. Otherwise, how would he have the face to face the imperial monarch in the future? However, in the next moment, the situation below suddenly changed. Star Wolf was not the only one who widened his eyes in shock. Even Defeating Armies looked at the scene below with a shocked expression on his face. Star Wolf muttered, "Defeating Armies, you're right. She's really far stronger than I imagined." No matter how unwilling he was, he had to admit it at this moment. Jun Muyan, truly worthy of being the wife that their Jun Shong had chosen, the polar domain's one and only mistress in the future. Cloud-piercing city, Ling family. The nine-demon fiend raised the bloodhand sword in his hand, and the dark clouds in the sky, along with the barrier chi from the bottom of the Heaven's End cliff, all surged towards the bloodhand sword. "You are honored to have tasted my bloody hand demon kill at such a young age. How many out-of-body stage cultivators died under my attack without being able to resist? Although the blood hand demon kill only has half of its power left, it's enough to tear your guts out and destroy your souls." As soon as he finished speaking, the bloodhand sword flew out of his hand. The surging crimson flames, along with the sword, transformed into a huge, bloody claw that slashed toward the 7 people of the Xiaoyaro sect. Yun Ruohan and the others raised their swords to block. However, within the area enveloped by the scarlet flames, thousands of miles were sealed in ice. They couldn't even budge. The fat rabbit howled and suddenly grew big, blocking Xiaobao's body. However, it couldn't stop its body from stiffening and trembling. It was a close shave. The zither music that had been ringing leisurely between heaven and earth suddenly changed its tune. It turned into an austere and murderous aura, like that of a powerful army. Soon after, a silvery light that was 100 times more dazzling than the previous one emitted from Muyan's body, and suddenly soared into the sky. Chapter 1856. Remember in 1 second, 800 small say net, wonderful pop-up window free reading. The girl with a picturesque face soars in the air, her clothes swaying. Her jade-white hands spread out to both sides. In a split second, 3 Tianmo Qin transform into illusions around her. The girl's hands are like a phantom, plucking on the 3 Tianmo Qin. 3 after-images are left on the zither. And in everyone's ears, 3 different music sounds. One is soothing softness. That's echo sound. In an instant, it replenishes the vitality of everyone in the Xiaoyaro sect. One is thick and heavy. That's divine hands weave the heavens. In an instant, it casts a powerful sound wall, blocking the fatal blow of the bloodhand demon kill. The third is the golden spear and iron horse. The notes are like a gale that sweeps through the entire Ling family. Then, it connects the several people of the Xiaoyaro sect, together with Xiao Bao, into a line. In an instant, Yun Ruohan, Qin Ju, Chu Moli, Leng Yumor, Ling Yusheng, and Xiao Bao all feel that their minds are clear. Not to mention the rapid recovery of their spiritual power and injuries. Their divine sense also seems to have touched a field that they could never touch before. This was such a mysterious feeling. They all look up at Mu Yang in the void. Yun Ruohan murmurs, "Junior sister broke through again." Yes, just now, Mu Yang didn't just have a perfect core. She broke through to the 6th rank of the Shun musician. At this moment, all the skills of the Tianmo Qin in her hands have gone up a level. And the third sound that resounds between heaven and earth is the 6th rank of the Shun musician skill, Big Dipper. With 7 stars as the base, using notes to construct a formation, connecting every companion on the battlefield. Mu Yang is the center of the formation, and every other point is the eye of the formation, complementing each other, forming a perfect combination, infinitely expanding the strength of the original 7 people. The girl in the void plucks the strings with both hands, so fast that it almost leaves after images. Her face shows a disdainful smile, looking down at the 9 demon. You dare to hurt my fellow apprentice, 9 demon, are you ready to die? Seeing Mu Yang soaring into the sky, the 9 demon is first shocked and aghast. The ominous premonition in his heart surged like a tide, causing beads of cold sweat to appear on his forehead. But when he heard Mu Yang's words, his face suddenly distorted, and his fear and uneasiness all turned into anger. A wild girl who hasn't even grown all her hair, actually dares to clamor for this seat to die. Have you all forgotten who was beaten half to death by this lord just now? Mu Yan's expression doesn't change in the slightest, her voice is as sweet as the sounds of nature. Just now was just now is now. Evil spirit, you're no match for us now. Ha ha ha, don't joke around. So what if you have advanced to the gold core stage? A few puny golden core cultivators also dare to talk nonsense about wanting to kill me. Do you know how many nascent soul cultivators and leaving body stage cultivators have died in my hands? The 9 fiend grabbed the air with one hand, and the bloodhand sword returned to his palm. I will send you to heaven now. Before Mu Yang could finish her words, Ju Sho had already flown up into the air. The crimson demonic aura on the bloody hand sword flickered as it slashed towards Mu Yang. Clang! A sound rang out, and the bloody hand sword was blocked in midair. Lung Yumor raises the long blade in her hand, and raises her head to reveal a carefree laugh, so slow. Damn devil, now even I can easily see your movement. The 9 demon's face reveals an aghast expression. Even if Mu Yang blocked his all-out attack, he wouldn't be this frightened. Chapter 1857. Remember, in 1 second, 800 small say net the person in front of him clearly didn't have the strength to fight back. But now, his speed is so fast that he can't catch it. Just as Ju Sho is about to urge his devil power, Lung Yumor quickly retreats. Yun Ruohan rushes up right after. Qin Ju, Ling Yusheng, Xiao Bao, one after another, leaving him no room to breathe. Everyone's strength was not just a little bit stronger than before. Especially the evil warding sword in Xiao Bao's hand. When it collides with his bloody hand sword, it unexpectedly makes his bloody hand sword make a cracking sound, as if it will break at any time. What makes Ju Sho scared the most is the suppression of his devil energy on these little guys. Just now, as long as his devil energy wrapped around them, they would be stiff and unable to move. But at this moment, Mu Yan's other 2 zither sounds seem to be outlining talismans in the air. The talismans burn, and the devil energy is swallowed up by the flames. This is the soul-sealing talisman, drawn in the air. Fear finally grew in the evil spirit's heart. He can certainly continue to burn his devil body and exert his strongest strength, but if he burns more than half of his devil body, he will never be able to recover in this lifetime. If he burns a little more, he won't even be able to keep a wisp of his divine soul. No, he, Ju Sho, still has so many ambitions that he hasn't realized, and so many enmities that he hasn't taken revenge for. How can he die in a small place like the azure blue world? Where there's life, there's hope. These little bastards, wait until he completely recovers his devil body. There will always be a way to make them die without a burial ground. There's no need to lose his life here just for a moment of pleasure. Thinking of this, Ju Sho quickly retracts his killing intent, and the devil energy rushes towards his feet. Mu Yang's brows wrinkle, and she stops playing. This devil wants to run. She raises her hand, and the 3 Tianmo Qin combine into one, turning into the 7 absolute swords. The zither sounds contend, lotus steps, activates. Mu Yan's figure is like lightning, rushing towards Ju Sho. However, at the next moment, she stopped moving and looked back in shock. Everyone from the Xiao Yarrow school stops and turns to look behind them. They see Chu Moli, who hasn't made any moves since the beginning of the battle. At this moment, he suddenly pulled his hands apart. Vaguely, Mu Yang and the others from the Xiao Yarrow sect noticed that there seemed to be a silver bow in his hand. There was a black arrow on the longbow. The moment he saw the arrow, Mu Yang instinctively took a step back, a shiver running down his spine. Her intuition told her that this arrow was dangerous, very dangerous. Chumoli looked at the 9 demons flying into the distant sky, and a gentle yet bashful smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. He loosened his fingers, and the black arrow flew out. Whoosh! The speed was as fast as lightning, and sparks flew everywhere. Evil Spirit sensed that something was wrong and turned around, but the black arrow had already pierced through his body. Ah! He screamed and fell from the sky. The arrow stuck in his abdomen lit up, and actually began to madly absorb his devil chi. My demonic body. Evil Spirit didn't even have time to feel the pain in his body before he let out a shrill cry. His demon body began to burn on its own. The origin source demonic chi, which had been ignited, poured endlessly into the arrow. In just a few short breaths, 1/3 of his demon body had been burned away. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.